Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for November 27, 2024. We're going to be doing the Week 13 NFL picks against the spread for this 2024 NFL season. Before we intro our co-host tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see here, I'm wearing an August is Gluttony Month t-shirt. We have that and a much more in the merch store. So let's get to here. We have, you guys may have missed it. We have the Butker Was Right apron, which has not been banned yet. I'm kind of shocked that it's still there because our last one was banned. Squirrel Lives Matter, a new shirt here that wasn't banned, hasn't been banned yet. So I feel like these will disappear at some point in the near future. So you can get them now and save 25%. They're 25% off everything at the merch store. So buying anything here would help us out a lot. Or you can go to Amazon, buy my books, Jerks of the College Years, where I made fun of people I saw at Penn State. As you can see here, some very colorful individuals. I spent 6 years at Penn State. I had a lot to write about, so you can get that. Also, how the 2020 MVP was stolen, which is a book about how Brett Favre sabotaged or tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers 4 years ago when Aaron Rodgers won the MVP. Also consider super chats, super stickers. That's the best way to help. We've had some great ones last week. We had John Sanders, Joe Fascio, Cam Meekin Eagle, Justice Cintron, and past slew as well. You guys have been so awesome with your contributions. And I always say that these YouTube ads pay nothing. So super chat, super stickers is the best way to help keep the show going. All right, so we're joined once again by Evan Daniel. Evan, how's it going? How's your week 12?
Doing well. Week 12 was good. Closed very strong, but the first time in a while we lost going against our favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. It was bound to happen eventually. Again, just because maybe it was because they were on the road. We talked about how they're so bad at home, and it was becoming like a laughing stock. And every week, just a joke to continue to bet, live bet. But Washington found themselves behind. We played it live. We figured the comeback would eventually happen. I guess the comeback eventually did happen, and then somehow they missed an extra point, and that was the end of that. I actually had a live bet at +2.5. And when they missed the extra point, I was kind of excited. I'm like, oh, this is great. At least we'll cover the 2.5. And then seconds later, before I even had a chance to celebrate, Dallas is foolishly returning an onside kick for a touchdown, which kept the game alive in some capacity, but wasn't meant to be. So hopefully we'll be able to get back against Dallas very soon.
That is a painful beat. Sorry to hear that you had the +2.5 live.
Yeah, the +2.5 was rough, but hey, it happens. That's why you gotta stay disciplined. You don't go crazy. One game, anything can happen, and we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. John says never bet that game because of worry about Daniels' ribs. So I thought 9 days off would help him, but somehow he actually looked worse than he did against the Steelers and the Eagles.
Yeah,
Um,
and we'll get to that game too, but that's a very very big concern.
yeah. Okay. Well, we will get to bet against Dallas at home though on Thanksgiving. So it's the second game on the slate. The first one though, to touch on this one first, the Bears at the Lions. This line is it's Lions -10 right now. So this is the one game I like the most on the Thanksgiving slate. There are two things I look for when I handicap these Thursday games. One is bet the better team if you can, and if you think the team's going to be focused, because on a short week, the inferior team just doesn't really have enough practice time to formulate a good game plan against the superior team. So will the Lions be focused? I think so, because they lost on Thanksgiving last year, but that's not a given. The second thing I look for is if a team is coming off an overtime performance, and that's what's happening to the Bears here. Teams coming off overtime games are 6-25 against the spread on Thursday night, the ensuing Thursday night. Now, I don't like to bet trends, but I mean this makes sense. I mean, these teams are tired. They have no time to prepare, and like having an exhausting game beforehand is very problematic for them. So I think that Detroit is in a really good spot here, and schematically, you need to be able to stop the run to beat the Lions. Like the past couple of teams they played, the Colts, the Jaguars, these teams couldn't stop the run. The one team to beat them this year, Tampa, can definitely stop the run. Chicago can't stop the run. They just allowed a big game to Aaron Jones, who we had for the rushing prop. Was actually kind of concerned about him because he fumbled, and I thought maybe they benched him for a little bit, but no, he got it pretty easily. So I like the Lions quite a bit here, even at -10. So what do you think about this game?
Yeah, you hit all the major points. I mean, Chicago's defense has really fallen off the last few weeks. Overall, now they're 25th in the league yards per play defense, 27th against the rush, 24th against the pass. That's not a recipe to beat the Lions. Minnesota just put up 450 yards, granted, overtime, but 7 yards per play is a huge, huge number. And you hit the main point for me, which is that Detroit lost last year on Thanksgiving. And I believe strongly that they paid attention to that. I think they're going to emphasize this week starting strong. If you remember last year, Green Bay won the toss. They elected to receive first play of the game, loved deep pass, touchdown, and that kind of set the tone. So I think Detroit will be ready for it. I think they will come out strong. Now, Detroit this year, they have outscored their opponents by 177 points. For context, next best is Buffalo with plus 106. 5 of their 10 wins have been by 2 touchdowns or more. I don't think this line is high enough. Now, I'm not advocating playing this as a contest pick, and you and I talked about this earlier. I really don't look to play any of these early Thursday or Good Friday or games in the contest because I like to have all the information, unless I really, really like 3 or all 4 of the games, which I don't really love these games. I don't really love these high spreads. I got cute last week and tried to play the Colts at plus 7.5 at home. And every time I looked up, I kind of felt like they should have been in the game. Detroit wasn't great offensively, only with 24. But Indy just kept shooting themselves in the foot and just couldn't score touchdowns. You know, they ended up settling for a couple of field goals and ended up getting blown out. So for me, the power rating here has this game over a touchdown. I have this game at 11.5, 12. I see this line actually drop from 10.5 to 10. So there is some money coming in on the dog, but I'm not getting in front of the Lions, and I'm certainly not getting in front of the Lions off of what they did last year on Thanksgiving, a loss. I think they come out swinging, and I think this is going to be one of those two score, 2 touchdown plus games. Give me like a 34-17. I think they're putting up 30 plus, and I don't trust the Bears to compete and to be able to hang with them.
Yeah, I feel like the game's going to go the same way. As John says, Lions last one was 2016. How many times do you think they've been reminded of that? We'll see that.
And how many times have they been favored to be like the Super Bowl favorite, right? How many times are they, kind of the runaway favorite in the NFC? The answer is not once. So throw history out the window. This team is a very, very different team. They'll be prepared for this game.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, they got tripped up against Green Bay last year. And at the time, it was surprising, but Green Bay, emerged as a very strong team down the stretch. They ended up beating Kansas City. They crushed Dallas in the first round, and they almost beat the Niners in the second round. This Chicago team's not nearly as good.
Not that.
So,
That's
no,
right.
definitely not. So, all right, let's get to the main show here with the Giants and the Cowboys. We kind of guessed that maybe the Giants would be favored in Dallas before Daniel Jones was benched. But now Daniel Jones, of course, is gone. They went to Tommy DeVito last week, and now Tommy DeVito may not play, apparently. And so it might be Drew Lock. And interestingly enough, this line moved from 4 to 3.5 on that news. So it just goes to show that like the third stringer is better than the second stringer. Who was the third stringer, but I don't understand what happened there. It felt like they just inserted DeVito to tank like purposely, which is the reason why I am like kind of shy to back the Giants here. If you told me right now that the Giants are going to play hard in this game, I would take them in a heartbeat because Dallas should not be favored by more than a field goal over anyone. They're terrible. I know they won last week, but it's such a fluky victory. Like Washington was sleepwalking through the game. They made so many mistakes throughout the afternoon. It just kind of looked like they watched Dallas and were probably laughing the whole time, and they just didn't take them seriously. I imagine something like that happened. Like they had like a team watch party or something. They're like, this team's a joke. We'll beat them. So I think that's probably what happened. But yeah, Dallas is awful. Now we have talks that Mike McCarthy is going to be re-signed apparently.
I saw that. I heard that this morning. That's crazy.
Eagles, Redskins, and Giants fans have to be happy to hear that. But so anyway, I like the Giants here. There's no way I'm backing Dallas. But I do have concerns about their focus because they made it known that they're tanking, and like you pointed out the comments from Dexter Lawrence and some of the other Giants last week, where they were very disgruntled by the situation, and I suppose they probably still feel that way only 4 days later. But it is a new game, it is a rival here. They might try harder. Like teams don't quit forever, So I think we'll see a better performance from them, but I'm not sure. So this is going to be like a small bet for me on the Giants. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's hard to back a team when the players are coming out and questioning the front office.
Right.
Clearly, they're making moves for salary cap purposes, but they were so bad last week. After the game, the comments shifted from why did the front office bench Jones or cut Jones to we're soft. Why am I not Malik Neighbors? Why am I not getting the ball until the second half?
Mhm.
Brian Burns, we're just playing soft. And now they're kind of calling each other out, as teammates, as men. And perhaps that would lead them on a short week. They don't like the Cowboys. They're playing on national TV, Thanksgiving Day. I would have to imagine they're going to give somewhat of a better effort in this game, although I wouldn't bet on it. But if they give you an effort, how do you lay points with Dallas? We've talked about this too many times. Dallas at home, 6 games in a row, trail by 20 points. Before I heard about the comments this morning from Jerry Jones that it's not impossible to give McCarthy an extension, I was thinking it would be really funny if the Giants go in there on Thanksgiving and just kill them, again, up by 20, beat them, and McCarthy gets fired this weekend. But now the fact that he might get an extension, I mean, that's just mind-boggling. If they don't quit, this line to me, I know we said with Jones a few weeks ago, Dallas, where Giants might be favored on the road. I made Dallas 2.5-point favorite. I think these teams are relatively equal from a talent perspective. The only thing I would give Dallas an edge in here is pass rush. Parsons against that offensive line could be a problem. Outside of that, I mean, it's bad offense against bad defense. So it's a low-scoring game. It's a field goal game. Aubrey's missed a bunch of kicks. I mean, last week Aubrey had a kick blocked. He missed a kick. They had a punt blocked. I think Washington, and we'll get to Washington a little bit later, but I think that game was more they took their foot off the gas. They weren't aggressive. Daniels seemed to be hurt. He really wasn't attacking downfield. They attempted a field goal on 4th and short. I don't know what the heck has gotten into Washington, but Dallas didn't do much in the game. I mean, they had 2 kick returns for touchdowns. So now they're laying more than a field goal. I mean, that you can't. Dallas can't be laying more than a field goal. So for me, I'm on the Giants. I think it'd be very funny if they take a big lead, but I think this is more of a game to bet in game again because you'll see very quickly early on if the Giants are refusing to tackle and guys are in the backfield all game, then this is get away from the game, or live bet against the Giants because they just don't care. Also, one thing I saw last week with Washington is they ran at least 3 or 4 QB runs towards Parsons. It's like, what are you guys doing? Why are we running? Why are we bootlegging towards the right? Let's go left. I think on the touchdown run or one of the plays that set up a touchdown, they actually went left. So if the Giants are smart and maybe Daboll could see this, go away from Parsons. Go to the left side. Don't go to the right side. So let's see early on if the Giants are giving a little bit more effort, show some pride. And now getting more than a field goal, I like the Giants.
Yeah, well, let's hope they show an effort here because I think on one of my cards, actually the card with Quacky, who's my Saturday co-host, he wants to submit this and he likes the Giants the most. So we're not going to get to talk to Quacky before these games. So just relaying that to you guys that he really likes the Giants. All right, let's get to the final game. So the best game on the slate should be the most competitive. The Dolphins at the Packers. This line is Packers -3. We're getting a little line value here. The advanced spread was Packers -3.5. So because the Dolphins beat the Patriots pretty handily, they moved it to 3, I suppose. But I don't know. This one is tough for me to handicap outside of getting some slight line value. With the Dolphins, they have these 2 things, and Tua actually talked about it in his post-game press conference where he said he wants to destroy narratives. And the narratives are, one, that the Dolphins can't beat good teams. The only playoff team they beat last year was Dallas, and Dallas also can't beat playoff teams. And 2, that the Dolphins can't win in the cold. And they are, 0-4 when it's 40 degrees or colder. It's supposed to be 28 in Green Bay on Thursday night. So, yeah, these are situations in which the Dolphins usually lose. I don't believe in Mike McDaniel to turn things around. Although I do think that the Dolphins have a potential good matchup here. The Packers are, I believe, 4th in missed tackles this year, and the Dolphins tend to, instead of going for explosive plays like they have in the past, they like to swing it quickly to Devon Achane or Jonnu Smith and just have them make the plays. And if the Packers are going to miss tackles, then that could really benefit Miami. Like 28 is cold. It's not free. It's not zero. So like I feel like they can win this game. So I feel like just fading the Dolphins just based on the cold weather, I think that's a mistake. But I still am falling on Green Bay because we're getting 3 instead of 3.5. That's how close this is for me. I can't really figure this one out. So do you like a side here?
Yeah, I lean to the Packers for the same reasons that you just mentioned. And it's really about you can want to change the narrative all you like. I heard somebody before that I respect talking about Miami can go on a run. They've been winning games. That's all true. And they have somewhat of a favorable schedule, but this is not one of their favorable games. They have not beaten a team above 500 in a year and a half. I'm throwing Dallas out. That doesn't count. It's like you said, Dallas also doesn't beat teams with a winning record. So that's their only win. People say, "Oh, they're bad in the second half of the season," or "Oh, they're only good at home. They're not good on the road." No, they're not good when they play against teams that are above 500, and they are good when they play teams that are below 500. It's really as simple as that. Close your eyes and picture what Tua is going to look like in the Green Bay weather. I know you said 28 degrees. I'm pulling up my forecast here for Thursday night, and it shows 21 degrees with a real feel of 6 and wind gusts of 23 miles an hour. And if you close your eyes and picture Tua with his full ski mask on, with a huge coat, with his hands in his pocket, that's what I'm picturing from I know the Kansas City game last year was just well below 0, and there's a big difference between 6 and maybe minus 20. But that's not the game that I want Tua in. Now, Tua, everything is short and quick, right? Snap, throw, snap, throw. Green Bay this year is 9th against the rush, so they've been better against the rush. I worry about Jordan Love. He leads the league in interceptions, and he hasn't played a full slate of games. He continues to throw balls into the other team, especially in the red zone. That's a big problem. I don't think the game is going to be a blowout. I have the game like 27-20, 24-20, something in that ballpark. But I don't trust Miami in this weather against an above-average team. And it's going to be very cold, and it's going to be night. There's going to be wind. The wind is going to affect Tua's downfield passing. And again, everything's going to have to be short. So I like Green Bay. I like Green Bay to win. I don't have much to add from what you mentioned. It's really those two factors. The good team, cold weather, not going to be on Miami in those situations.
Yeah, I saw 28 and light wind, so I guess things have changed.
I'm looking right now at AccuWeather, which I like to use. And again, day, night, I don't know what they constitute as night, because during the day it shows sun 35, but obviously as the sun sets, and we're talking about 8:30, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night as we get into the second half, maybe the real feel of 6 degrees is 2 o'clock in the morning. But if you tell me there's going to be 14 to 23 mile per hour wind gusts, cloudy, and it's cold. 21 degrees is cold. Yeah. And this is a team coming from Florida that relies on precision passing. I don't see him throwing the ball downfield. I'm really picturing him, which I saw last year in that Kansas City game, just bundled up, not looking like an NFL quarterback. And then I see Josh Jacobs on the other side wearing a sleeveless shirt or short sleeves with a bunch of linemen from Green Bay who are going to be out there shirtless before the game, and they're going to maul them. So I'd be impressed. This is a big game. If Miami wants to prove that they're a legit contender now, go on the road and win this game. I think 3 is light. I think this line should have been 3.5, 4 for sure. And I'm not picking this as a contest pick. I'm not advocating running and laying -3. But I like Green Bay to win this game, and 3 I think is a bargain price.
Yeah, the Florida thing to playing in the cold is a real thing. This is anecdotal, but my cousin went to he was from here, but he went to college in Florida, and he came back on spring break, and we're hanging out, and we went to the mall or something, and during the car ride over, he's like, "Oh, it's so cold here." I'm like, "Dude, it's 65." So these people in Florida get soft. So yeah, 21 and heavy winds. I bet much worse than I thought.
Right now, I don't like the under. I see somebody talking about the under.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't like the under, first of all, Green Bay's throwing the ball downfield, so we know they're going to take shots. They throw the ball downfield to Watson. They're throwing the ball downfield in general. They're always looking to take shots. And the other reason is the turnovers. When you get a turnover in your own zone, a Tua pick. Last year, this is the game where Tua threw 3 picks. I think he got concussed in this game against Green Bay. Was this the Good Friday game, or am I thinking that 2 years ago? I think this was last year.
I think it was a Christmas game, I think.
Was it Christmas game?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was.
I'm just pulling up real quick because his stats in that game were awful. And that was, I think, people say, oh, it may have been, it was 2 years ago. It was 2024. And the final score was 26-20 in the game. And Tua in the game was 16 of 25, 310 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks. And they claimed that he had the concussion earlier and then threw the 3 interceptions. But he was throwing the ball. He was wild in that game. A lot of his passes in that game weren't even close. So maybe it was the concussion. I don't know. I can't claim to be an expert on that, but all I know is he had 3 interceptions and probably 2 or 3 other balls that were dropped. So as far as the under is concerned, I don't really want a part of the under. Also, we've seen what's happened in some of the ends of some of these games. If I'm on the under, I'm on the first half under. I'm not on the game under.
Okay.
So if the first half under, if I'm getting like 23.5, 24.5, maybe. But again, Green Bay is going to throw it deep. They're going to go out. They're going to come out early. A lot of times they take the ball first, and they're chucking the ball downfield. The Dolphins, I don't think will do that. I think with the Dolphins, everything's going to be short and quick, 5-6 yard slants, trying to run the ball and playing field position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So John's saying you can't find the game at 3s. You're just getting 3.5. It's 3 minus 120 at Caesars and BetMGM right now. So you have to pay a little bit more. I know it's 3 minus 115 at Sarco, but
3.5 at DraftKings.
Yeah.
I don't know what FanDuel has right now. It's 3 in Vegas, and it's 3 as the Super Contest lines. It's 3.
Yeah. Well,
so
yeah.
The line is 3.
Yeah, you might find a better vig eventually. But just keep checking other books. All right, so let's get to the Black Friday game, which I thought was going to be Desmond Ridder when they announced Gardner Minshew was out for the year with a broken collarbone, and I thought the sportsbooks could be like, hey, Black Friday sale, come bet the Chiefs, you win free money. But it's not going to be Desmond Ridder. It's going to be Aidan O'Connell, who might just be just as bad. I was looking at the stats from last year, the EPA among quarterbacks qualifying, which is 125 passes or more. There were only 3 quarterbacks worse than Aidan O'Connell last year if you exclude garbage time in EPA. So he's not a good quarterback. So I would not be very excited about backing him. He is better than Desmond Ridder, I would think, but or I don't know, who knows? Maybe not. And then you also have to consider that he may not be 100% coming off the thumb injury that he had that made him miss about a month and a half of action here. So this is a rare situation, I think, where you want to take the Chiefs. The Chiefs usually don't cover these large spreads. They treat the NFL regular season like as if they were an NBA team. They just goof around and like try new stuff, and they just want to make it through the regular season to the playoffs. We've seen that so many times. We saw that last year. They lost to the Raiders on Christmas. They lost to the Packers Sunday night. They had some other missteps, and lo and behold, they won the Super Bowl. So they know that they can get away with like goofing around. But they lost to the Raiders on Christmas last year, and I think that has to be a big thing for them, just playing the same team again. I feel like they're not going to want to get tripped up, and they're playing a bad quarterback who may not be healthy. So I think I think that this is a situation where to take the Chiefs in a rare situation where they're a big favorite. So I'm on Kansas City here. What do you think?
I'm on Kansas City also, and really because they lost last year to the same team. Again, we're talking about Green Bay. Not Green Bay, Detroit last year, and therefore it's part of our handicap this year. I think the same thing with Kansas City. Obviously, they played a couple of weeks ago. Kansas City led by 14, gave up the back door. Think back to last year, that Christmas Day game. Do you remember how many passes Aidan O'Connell threw I think after the first quarter? It may have been the second half, but it was definitely after the first quarter, I think. I think he threw 1 forward pass.
Yeah.
In the second half.
Like 0-1 or something.
And if you remember why, on back-to-back plays, Kansas City gave up, I think it was a pick 6, and then a fumbled snap that led to a touchdown. This year, the Raiders lead the league in turnovers, and they lead the league in fewest takeaways. As long as Kansas City doesn't give the ball away, and I presume they'll probably get a fumble or 2 or a pick or 2, so maybe they'll create 1 or 2 turnovers and create some short fields. I don't think the Raiders scored in this game. I think Kansas City's defense shows up. Now, it's hard to say that because last week the game was 20-6. And Kansas City went to sleep. And then at one point, I think it was when they were up by 8, They went zero blitz at one point. Really, real credit to Bryce Young, and we'll talk about Bryce Young later, but credit to Bryce Young. He made a couple of plays against Spags defense late in the game when the game was on the line. So it wasn't like it was a prevent defense against, in a 14-point game. They were up 8 and they were coming at him, and Kansas City gave up a bunch of third or fourth downs and then the 2-point conversion, they have that game tied. So Kansas City is the definition of the team that does exactly what they need to win the game. We pointed this out weeks ago. We continue to reiterate it. I was on Carolina last week, contest-wise. And again, I'm not taking this game for a contest purpose, but I think this is the rare spot, like you said, that they want to beat the Raiders. They're going to be focused after what happened last year. I could see them being up by 14 again. I just don't think Aidan O'Connell is the guy that's going to come down and drive the field to backdoor this game. So I could see this game being like a 24-9, 27-9, 27-10 type of game. I think the better bet here might be the Raider under, the team total under. I know I've advocated this before in a number of different games, but I don't necessarily trust that Kansas City is going to score because they don't care. So if I have a team that might score 23 points, maybe it's 23-13. They don't cover, but I think even 23-16 or 24-16, something in that ballpark. Raiders under 16.5 points, I think, might be the better play. 17.5 obviously being a key number. But a lot of teams these days are at 16, going for 2. I don't think the Raiders score any points in this game. So I'm with you on laying the points here, even though it's 12, 13-point spread.
John Sanders, 511 super chat. Thank you so much, John. He says Eagles 3-1 to win the NFC, or what about the Rams at 44-1 to win the NFC? What do you think?
I don't think the Rams at 41 to the end. I don't think the Rams are winning the NFC. I mean, they're going to be a long shot to win the division and get into the playoffs, given their schedule. So I think you're throwing money away at the Rams. Eagles 3-1. I'm trying to think in my head off the top of my head what their lines would be. If they get the 1 seed, that might not be a bad bet because now it's one game basically to the conference championship against probably Detroit. But if they are not the 1 seed, then they're going to have to play 3 games. And we've talked about mechanical parlay. If you bet them each of those games, it's not like they're going to be a 10-point favorite. So if they're a 7-point favorite as a 2 seed against, let's say, who's going to be the 7 seed? Maybe Washington, right? They're probably a 7-point favorite in that game, somewhere in that ballpark, 6.5 favorite. So it's like what, like minus 300 on the money line. So if you mechanically parlay them week after week, they're probably still underdogs in Detroit, right? If they're a road team in Detroit, they're probably a slight dog. So if you're playing them 3 straight games, you're probably getting better than a 3-1 payout. I don't think 3-1 is enough for me to take Philly to win the NFC. And the Rams, I would feel like I'm kind of throwing money away. I'm not impressed with the Rams last couple of weeks. We'll get to the Rams soon, but I'm not impressed with the Rams.
Okay. I don't think I'm with you. I don't think 3-1 is that bad. But maybe you can shop around and get something a little bit better. Rams. I like the Rams more than you do. But I just don't think that they're in the upper echelon. They're not like the Lions, Eagles, or Packers. I think that they're in the next tier. Or I guess you could say Eagles, Lions are tier 1, Packers or tier 2. Maybe if the Niners get their crap together, they're in tier 2 as well. And then the Rams would be in like tier 3, I think.
But again, here it's a mechanical parlay, right? You might be better off right now playing the Rams to win the division, right?
Right.
And then rolling over 3 straight games, Rams money line, Rams money line, Rams money line. Because let's say, what are they to win the division right now? 5-1, somewhere in that ballpark. So now if you put 100 on the Rams to win the division, now you're at 600. And if you play the Rams, you take that 600 and you roll it over 3 straight games, they may be favored in the first game if they're at home as a divisional winner against the 5 seed. Or the 5 seed may be Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So they already played Minnesota. They killed them. They beat them 30-20. So maybe they're a small favorite. Maybe it's even money, maybe slightly worse than even money. So your 600 just became, let's say, 1,100. So now your 100 turned into 1,100, and you still have 2 more games to play. And we know in the third game, when they go to Detroit, something like that, they're a 2 or 3-1 favorite. So again, mechanically parlaying the Rams, you're probably getting better than 44-1 if you play them now to win the division and then roll over your profits 3 straight games. So I always look, instead of taking the long shot, we've talked about this before, when you have a one-and-done situation like March Madness or like the NFL playoffs, you could ride that team week in, week out. You don't have to play the entire bet. You can roll over half your bet if you don't like it anymore. Instead of hedging and hoping for a middle or guaranteeing yourself a profit, you can roll over and you're probably going to get better than 44 to 1.
Yeah, it's great advice for sure.
Rams actually 450 to win the division, I see. So yeah, so play it now. Play your Rams plus 450 and roll over your profits, or play them week to week, because theoretically they almost have to run the table. Now you don't want to do that because they don't actually have to run the table. I would advocate, you like the Rams, play a division and then roll it over down the road and kind of see where you're at week in, week out. You're probably going to get better than 44 to 1. The books are not stupid. They're not giving you 44 to 1 if that's the real odds. If they're giving you 44 to 1, that means the real odds are probably closer to 60 to 1. And you could take advantage of that by playing it the way I just described.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry to be a mathematician here, but
no, it's great.
That's how the math works.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I like those mechanical parlays. It just makes a lot of sense. All right, let's get to the Sunday slate here. So our first game, and we touched on this a little, the Redskins a little bit. Titans at the Redskins. Line is 5.5. You have to love the line value here. The advanced line on this game was Washington -8. And because of 1 week's worth of games, this line has fallen to 5.5. Obviously, not just Washington losing to Dallas. You had Tennessee beating Houston. So we get this from 8 to 5.5. It's gone through two key numbers of 7 and 6. So automatically, I'm looking at Washington. Then think about this game. The Redskins, I said it before, like they were sleepwalking through the game. Like every time they tried to do something good, like there was a stupid penalty, turnover. Brian Robinson got injured early, missed field goals, missed extra point, obviously, although that wouldn't have covered the spread. But still, like they just didn't seem like they were fully invested in the game. And I really think something like that happened where, they were having a team watch party and they were just laughing at Dallas the whole time. And they just didn't take them seriously. So I think we're going to see a much better effort from Washington this week. A good team coming off. It wasn't like an embarrassing loss from a margin perspective, but losing as a double-digit favorite to like the laughing stock of the league, like that is an embarrassing loss in itself. So anytime you get a good team coming off an embarrassing loss, I will take it. And then on the flip side, whenever you get a bad team coming off a win, it's usually a fade situation. These teams that are bad, they have trouble sustaining success. Will Levis, when pressured, is horrible. And he's going to see a lot of pressure in this game. The Redskins get decent pressure on the quarterback. He took 9 sacks last week. Now, I thought Tennessee had a decent matchup against Houston, where they were able to stop the run. But Tennessee's secondary is a mess. They're down their top 2 cornerbacks. They're down their best linebacker. So I think Washington should be able to rebound here. So I like them. The only concern I have is that Jane Daniels' ribs might be a problem, but eventually he will be healthy. I'd rather be early than late on that. But I think regardless, I think they could beat Tennessee by more than 5.5. Like Tennessee's just a bad team. So who do you like here?
I'm torn on this game, and Washington's been my darlings all year. I've been betting them pretty much every single week, as you know, probably since week 2. I've been a big Daniels fan since college. I really was high on this team coming in, and they've been very good to me. But there's 2 fundamental flaws that I'm seeing right now that kind of counter a lot of the good points that you make. Obviously, the line value is there. Terrible spot Tennessee, great spot Washington, bounce back after 3 straight losses. But to me, the 2 fundamental differences are the injury could be real with the oblique, his size. He certainly hasn't been running as much. But really, I'm seeing a change in the coaching philosophy. Earlier in the season, they were going for 4th downs. Think about that Arizona game. They moved the ball. They were going for 4th downs. Even Baltimore and Philly, they were really pushing the tempo, aggressive play calling, and I liked what I was seeing from the coaching staff. Last week, 4th and 2, second drive, they settled for a 51-yard field goal attempt, which, by the way, missed. Right? This is the kicker who missed 2 extra points in the game and had that field goal missed. Obviously, they didn't know about the extra points because those happened after the missed field goal, but that field goal wasn't close. 4 weeks ago, 4th and 2 at the 33, 34-yard line, no brainer. They're going for it. It's a long field goal attempt. Austin Seibert, what are we doing here? And I didn't like that. I don't know why that fundamental shift happened, but that scares me. Tennessee, they played well. They held Houston to 4.8 yards per play. Levis looked great. At one point, he was 11 for 11 passing. They're throwing the ball downfield. Washington's missing some running backs in the game. Brian Robinson. I don't know what his story is going to be. Eckler certainly got hurt late in the game. Yes, I see Zane Gonzalez is now going to be kicking instead of Seibert for Washington. Very conveniently, a lot of these kickers who suck one week find themselves on IR the next week. I find that very interesting. We can't cut you. We're going to give you an injury because you need to get your head screwed on straight. So I don't know what to think in this game. Like, I don't want to get conned by this line move and by the spot situation and a team that I've been riding all year. Now I'm going to jump off them to go back Will Levis on the road, coming off of a big win. Washington was kind of embarrassed last week, losing to Dallas, which is pretty pathetic. But did they crash back to earth? Is this injury a real thing? Is the play calling less aggressive because of the injury? Are they trying to protect the quarterback? I'm not really sure. So I'm kind of torn on the game. My gut tells me that Tennessee is the right side. My gut says that it's too many points and something's wrong with Washington, and I can't trust them right now. They got to get back on track. But logic would say that, don't be fooled by the line move. It's just one game, like you said. Blips happens all the time, and they're really the far better team. I actually made this line 6.5. So last week when I saw the line, my numbers adjusted, of course. So when I thought in my head, hey, this is going to be under 7, it's a good spot. But I made the line 6.5, and I don't really find a lot of value. And like I said, I'm kind of torn here, between the team that's been very good to me and the team that's been playing better.
Yeah, I made it 8, so I still
8. Okay.
Yeah, that was the advanced number, but yeah.
Roger Long makes a good point. Levis I thought it was 8 sacks, but either way, 8 or 9 sacks. The Titans took, let's say, 8 sacks in the game. Okay, they threw a pick 6. They gave up a kick return to the 19 on the first drive of the game that led to a touchdown on the first play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they won.
Yep.
They should have gotten killed. A pick 6, a kick return basically for a touchdown, 8 sacks in the game. That's unheard of. And they won the game on the road against a team that was coming off a bunch of losses. Well, the Dallas win, but before that, a couple of losses. Divisional game. Houston kind of needed the game. They didn't really need the game, but certainly divisional opponent. I was impressed with Levis last week. Besides for the pick 6, he was good. He was good. Yeah. In Washington right now, the injury, it's scaring me off them for the time being.
Yeah, let's not forget that the week before, though, they got blown out at home against Minnesota, a Minnesota team that only won 12-7 against Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. So I think this Will Levis is just going to be very inconsistent here. Like, he can make some beautiful throws, but he just can't see the field well. He just holds the ball way too long in the pocket. He's going to take a lot of sacks again, and just I think it's the number of how many mistakes he makes. Like, yeah, he threw a pick 6, but that was really the only turnover he had. Like, he could easily have 3 picks in this game and just blow the game.
I'd like to see Washington bounce back. I think I kind of need to see Washington put together a game like they had against Arizona, the way they played against Baltimore, although they lost. I want to see them put together a good game. And right now I haven't seen that in a month. Mm-hmm. So I'm skittish on laying points with a team that I think is fundamentally different than a month ago when they were more aggressive with a quarterback that wasn't hurt.
Yeah. In fairness, though, they did play the Eagles and Steelers, 2 defenses that can make it bad. Yeah, we'll see. 4th and 2 against the Cowgirls, go for it. Yeah, why go for 4th and 2 when you have an injured kicker coming back to hit a 51-yard field goal? They
blew that game. That was a shame.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That McLaurin late touchdown, that was so bizarre. That was not even the most bizarre missed extra point I've ever seen. I don't know if you remember the 2003 game with the Saints and the Jaguars. The Saints they were up, and the Jaguars were up. The Saints had no time left, and then they did that the backward pass stuff at the end of the game, and they actually hit the touchdown. And then they missed extra point to not.
I don't remember that.
It was crazy. Yeah, so. Well, the one of the best plays in NFL history, and then you just missed.
I feel like in that situation they should have gone for 2, because Dallas is like what the hell just happened,
right?
And you can almost take advantage of that. And I guess from a coaching perspective, you have the better team. You're at home. You should win the game, but you're still chalking it up to a coin toss in overtime. Whereas now you have all the momentum, and Dallas is like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I hear both sides, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had plus 2.5. So when they missed, I was like, see, easy peasy. And as I'm texting a friend, never in doubt, I see Dallas like, wait, are you really going to the end zone? Like, go down. The game's over if you go down. Don't keep the game alive. Like that happened in the Alabama game earlier
Right.
this year where a guy didn't go down and Alabama ended up coming back and winning that game. And I just couldn't believe what I was watching. But
Yeah,
hey, it happens.
McCarthy was pissed when that happened. It was John Carney, the kicker for the Saints, who missed. And keep in mind, back then that was the old extra point. That was what 18 yards or something, whatever it was, and not 30, 35 or whatever it is now. Yeah, he was. I mean, he was like 403 or 408. I remember Chris Berman saying that he was 403 or 408 extra points, and he missed. But I urge you to after this show is over
Yeah,
to
I will.
look up that play. Even just you can even look at the NFL primetime highlights of that. It's just like crazy backwards passes, and they get it. It was Aaron Brooks was the quarterback. I think Deuce McAllister may have scored the winning touchdown. I can't remember, but yeah, it was crazy. And then they missed extra point. It's unbelievable. And guess who had guess who had the plus 1.5 in that game and ended up losing. So anyway, that was one of the early bad beats.
Of
All
course
right.
you did.
Yeah, of course. Speaking of 1.5 point spreads, Chargers at the Falcons. Chargers are -1.5. Chargers another team that just really shot themselves in the foot last week. I'm not saying like I definitely had the wrong side in that game. I'm not saying I had the right side and got unlucky, but every time they hit a big play or they did something good on third down or did anything good, it was like holding on the offense like every time. And then they had a deep pass interference or like nullified by holding. And then Quentin Johnson drops a pass that could have gone for 30 yards.
I
And
think
then
Quentin
Quentin,
Johnson just dropped another pass.
yeah, I know he's ridiculous, and even the fans are booing. I'm like, I didn't know the Chargers had fans. They're booing this guy. Is frustrating, but this is a new week, and the Chargers are very well coached. I expect them to rebound. Jim Harbaugh is, if you take out 2014, which is his last year at San Francisco, and he basically had one foot out the door anyway. If you take out that year and look at how Harbaugh has done after a loss, he's 10-3 against the spread. So I love this sort of a situation where you have a well-coached team, very well-coached team coming off a loss. I think they're going to rebound, and they're playing Atlanta. This Atlanta team's a joke. They lost to the Saints. They got blown out by the Broncos, like not even close. This is just not a very good team at all, and I think the Chargers are much better. If you're worried about an early start time, if you're still in that mindset, early 1:00 game on the East Coast, which has been disproven a lot. Jim Harbaugh in these games is 8-1 against the spread as a head coach. The only loss he had was earlier this year against the Steelers when Justin Herbert got injured. So Harbaugh knows how to handle these situations, and I think you bounce back. It's a great bounce back spot here against the Falcons, who are just miserable. And the Falcons may be without Darnell Mooney too, so it's been a big part of their offense. So outside of Cousins, London, and Bijan, this Atlanta team is really nothing. So give me the Chargers. I like them quite a bit here. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the Chargers too. I don't know if I like them quite a bit because the spot really doesn't favor them with the short week. Atlanta coming off of the bye with a blowout loss, right? So that's where we always look to see, okay, you have a bye week. What did you do the week before? Did you win? Are you celebrating? Are you partying like the Buffalo Bills, who are still partying from the Kansas City Super Bowl? Or are you Atlanta, who just got blown out by 30 and now you have a bye week? Still in control of the division, but certainly not a team to be trusted. Can't trust the kicker. Don't trust Cousins against pass rush. And I told you this a few times over the past few weeks. I'm starting to come around to what you've been saying about the Chargers. And really, because they hadn't really played anybody. So I finally now have the Chargers in my top 10. I have the Chargers 8th in my power ratings. I have Atlanta all the way down at 20. So I made the Chargers a small favorite. I think the 2.5 is probably the right number. This line opened Pick'em, and the look ahead was Pick'em, and I'm like, oh, Pick'em, I like Pick'em. But now at 2.5, we've said this about Atlanta. They play a lot of these 1-2 point games because they end up selling for a lot of field goals. Koo is hit or miss with these field goals, and they play a lot of the 24-23 variety games. 20-19, 22-20, 23-22. That back and forth field goal affair. And I don't know that I want to lay points, even though it's only 2 points. I do trust the Chargers now a little bit more. I certainly think they're the better team, but I don't know if there's any real urgency for the Chargers. They're not going to catch Kansas City. They're probably going to make the playoffs. I think they're probably the 6th seed in the AFC playoffs. And Atlanta, again, the urgency to me is more coming off the bye and the loss. Tampa can catch them. Tampa's got an easy schedule coming up for the rest of the way. And Atlanta, after this game, they go to Minnesota. Then they got a couple easy games. They play the Raiders. They play the Giants and Panthers at home. They play Washington on the road. So they don't need this game from a divisional perspective, although off the bye with the blowout, I don't know if there's a lot of value in this line right now, but I do agree with you. I lean Chargers, and I'm starting to believe. I don't need to see the Chargers win. They obviously blew the lead and then won against Cincinnati, and they weren't as bad as the final score indicated last night, being down by 2 touchdowns. I was on Baltimore in that game as a contest pick, even though the line was 3. So I was on the other side of that, but I was impressed with the Chargers. I mean, they come out to the 10-0 lead. If Harbaugh is not aggressive on 4th downs, that changes the game. A good coach knows your team and knows, hey, I got to get a yard here. If they punt in those situations, I was impressed that the Chargers scored right before halftime. They didn't sit on the ball. They took the ball, 24 seconds left. Let's throw the ball downfield to get a field goal. So I was impressed with the way they played. Obviously, the Dobbins injury matters a little bit. Running backs to me, he's really not that big of a deal, but you'd like to see Dobbins or somebody of that caliber play, and certainly Quentin Johnston. I mean, what do you have? 4 drops, at least 3 or 4 drops in the game.
Right.
That was pretty bad. So, but I love Herbert. I've always really liked Herbert. I've always felt Herbert's top 5 quarterback in the league. And I kind of felt earlier this season with the games they've been playing against poor competition that Harbaugh kind of turned him into a little bit more of a game manager instead of letting him loose. So if he needs to be let loose against Atlanta's defense, I think Herbert can play with anybody and put up points with anybody. So I agree with you on the pick. I'm not sure I would take it because of the spot, but I am starting to trust the Chargers a little bit more.
Yeah, I think if the Chargers are coming off a win, this would be a lot different. I think they could take this game off, but if they lose this game, suddenly they're the 7th seed potentially, and they're only 2 games up. And really, if Miami wins, only a game up on the 6th seed. So that's
well, the Chargers also play Kansas City next week.
Yeah.
That's something that's in their minds. Everybody knows their next opponent.
Yeah.
So they know they're playing Kansas City on deck, and I think they're fine for the playoffs. Denver, they play Denver at home, although that'll be a home game for Denver basically. And they play New England. They play the Raiders both on the road. So I don't think they're in danger of missing the playoffs. I would worry a little bit about the look ahead. I also worry about their rushing defense. Now Baltimore makes everybody look like a bad run defense, but Bijan is great. If they get him the ball, if he gets the ball out in space, he could really be a difference maker. So, again, the line is 2. I don't think the Chargers are going to win this game by any sort of real margin. But Atlanta has shown they can get blown out. And they got blown out by Seattle at home. Yeah. They got blown out, of course, 2 weeks ago against Denver. So, and Kirk Cousins, if you get pressure on the guy, he's a sitting duck back there. So, I do like your pick, but I think this game is a relatively close game. What was my kind of fake score in this game? I think I like the over in this game. I think both teams are going to score. I think a lot of teams, Atlanta plays some of these high-scoring games. I think this game goes into the low 50s. So I think this is like a 27-24, 27-23, 28-24, something in that ballpark. But I don't think it's like, 31-20 Chargers. So I don't think they're running away with the game. But I lean to the Chargers.
Atlanta's last 3 non-divisional games, so we know how bad the division is. The Broncos 38, Falcons 6. Falcons 27, Cowboys 21. We know how bad Dallas is. And then Seahawks 34, Falcons 14. It's not good. This is not a good team. All right, let's get to the next game. Steelers at the Bengals. The Bengals are -2.5 here. Bengals coming off the bye, and when we saw them last off the bye, they were losing. They lost to Baltimore. So this is the dynamic where, as you always say, like a team coming off a loss, heading into a bye, usually a good thing. So these, unfortunately, I feel like both these teams are in good spots. So, for example, like the Bengals, I like backing really good quarterbacks off a loss. Joe Burrow off a loss in his career is 18-8 against the spread, and generally, all the great quarterbacks have this sort of record. So I want to take Cincinnati. However, you have the Steelers also coming off a loss on national TV. They've had extra rest. They've had extra time to hear about how they lost to the Browns. And you have Mike Tomlin as an underdog, which is usually a good spot here. So I really don't know what to make of this game. This is a total pass for me. If I had a lean, it would be Pittsburgh, just because we're getting points here. But I could really see this game going out of the way. Do you have a good side here?
Yeah, I'm on Cincinnati, and this might be one of my top plays of the week.
Really?
If this line is 2.5, I can tell you right now, it's going to be on both my contests. This is where I know we've talked about must win. They're must win for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati to me is 7-4. Maybe they're 8-3. In my book, they're a top 8 team. I know their defense has struggled, and I know some of their games, like their Giants game, they didn't play that well. The Cleveland game, they didn't play that well. They got killed by Philly, but they to me are the team that needs to go on a run right now. And Pittsburgh, yes, they're still in first place in the division. I've been ready to fade Pittsburgh before the snow came down. And by the way, that was such a beautiful game to watch. It's like when you see that game in snow, I wish we had that every single week. But before the snow fell, their offense was terrible. And it's not like Cleveland's been the Cleveland defense of old. If Cincinnati's defense can be okay, they don't have to be great. Just don't give up the moon ball to Russ. I don't like Pittsburgh's offense. I like Pittsburgh's defense, but I don't think Pittsburgh's defense can hang with Cincinnati if Burrow needs to move the ball. I don't think there's anybody who can guard Chase. If Higgins is healthy, you got that 1-2 punch. I think they're going to move the ball. I think they're going to score points. I think they can put up. Listen, the Colts put up 20. Colts put up 27 on this team. I see no reason why Cincinnati can't get to 27 points. Being that 27, 24 to 27 range, I think would be more than enough to beat Pittsburgh. You have the bye and the loss, like we said. Even though Pittsburgh has off the loss, and even though Tomlin is an underdog, 2.5, it's a pick'em game. And I have a team that is, if Cincinnati loses, they're out. This is a playoff game. They've talked about, let's go. It's a playoff run right now. I have Cincinnati win this game by 7+. And I trust this team. I trust the offense. When they need to make a play, I trust Burrow to make the plays that need to be made to win the game. And I don't trust Russell Wilson. I know they've played well. I know teams somehow, Henry fumbles. We never see Henry fumble. He fumbles against Pittsburgh. These weird picks, the pick against Rodgers before halftime for Pittsburgh, the pick a couple of weeks ago with a Pittsburgh player with his back turned to the ball, somehow just plucking it out of the Justice Hill's hands on a wheel route. A lot of these weird, lucky bounces have gone Pittsburgh's way. And if that happens, it happens. But I think Cincinnati needs the game. This is a playoff game for them. It's not a playoff game for Pittsburgh. And give me Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely would trust you on this. You have more conviction on it. I couldn't quite figure this game out, but yeah, I mean, you're right. They do definitely have to win this game to keep going. If they lose this, then they're out. But at what point do you say that they're like the Jets, where every week it's like, oh, the Jets have to win, And then
right? No, of course. And John Sanders makes a good point. So you just popped up. Bengals are the team that no one wants to play. That's the comment somebody made today about Miami. Mm-hmm. And I heard it, and I was driving at the time, like, oh, Miami's a team that the rest of the playoff teams don't want to play. That's not true. Every single playoff team wants to play Miami because they don't ever win against the playoff team, especially if it's in bad weather. So if I'm a playoff team, if I'm Buffalo, I mean, can you imagine if Buffalo got a pick right now who they're going to play in the playoffs? I promise you, they want to play Miami. They do not want to play Cincinnati, who killed them a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Cincinnati's a team that Baltimore doesn't want to play Cincinnati. Baltimore should have lost twice to Cincinnati. They don't want to see that again. Kansas City doesn't want to play Cincinnati. That's probably the only team Kansas City doesn't want to play. Kansas City knows they're going to beat Buffalo in the playoffs. They know they're going to find a way to beat Baltimore in the playoffs, but Cincinnati is the one team that actually beat them in the playoffs. So that is the one team that I don't think teams want to play. Burrow is very good. And if he's healthy and those receivers are healthy, I know the defense has been bad. That's not an offense I want to face. And that's an offense that if they get rolling, they're going to put up 27. And Pittsburgh, to me, they're not on that level. So I love Cincinnati in this game. It's probably my favorite game on the board.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see if Cincinnati's coaching staff can figure something out with that defense. So they have a good coordinator.
They have a good, and that's usually the guy that makes the adjustments that are necessary. Coming off a bye, I do not think Orlando Brown's coming back. I thought he was out for the season. Am I wrong about he's not out for the season? I thought he was on. I thought he was done.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything on him yet. So let me see this. He's not on IR, so I don't know. So maybe he's going to be available this week. Who knows? That'll be a nice boost for sure. All right, let's jump to the next game. We have.
I'm sorry. Trent Brown is out for the season.
Trent Brown.
Orlando Brown. I don't see any news on Orlando Brown for this week.
Yeah, he's missed the past couple of games.
Yeah.
So let's see. He was Orlando Brown was he missed 9 and 10 and 11. So he's missed the past 3 games. So they
But
didn't
their
put him on
offense
the
hasn't been the problem. The defense has
right.
been the problem.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, Lou Anarumo, he's a great defense coordinator. His defense hasn't been good this year, but we've seen coordinators turn things around late in the year, and especially off a bye, so that could certainly help. All right, let's get to Colts and Patriots. This line was Colts -2.5, and I was like, oh, this kind of looks interesting, and then it went to 3, and I'm like, not nearly as good, but I still would side with Indianapolis here. If you look at all the wins the Colts have had, they're against the Bears, the Steelers, the Titans, the Dolphins, and the Jets. Dolphins when they didn't have Tua, and their losses. If you take out the Jaguar game when the Jaguars are healthy, they lost to the Texans twice, the Packers, the Vikings, the Bills, and the Lions. Now, which group does New England belong? I think it's the first group, but so I feel like they could. They're the better team here, and I think that they should be able to run the ball well. Last week was the issue is not being able to run the ball. Detroit's one of the best run defenses in the NFL, and if you can shut down Jonathan Taylor, suddenly you're going to have Anthony Richardson throw the ball, and that's like anything could happen when he drops back to pass. It's like a magic 8-ball, really. Just like any result can happen. But here, if they can run Taylor and keep the ball out of Richardson's hands, I think that'll be beneficial here. And so I like the Colts. So what do you think?
Yeah, I like the Colts. This is probably another pick for me. 2.5 for sure. 3. I don't want to lay off a game at 3. I did last week. I laid off the Rams because it was -3, and I had conviction that they were going to win the game. The Colts, again, playoff game. The Colts schedule the rest of the way. They play New England here. They go on a bye. Then the Denver game is really the playoff. I mean, the playoff starts for both teams. Now, Cincinnati will be in the mix as well for that 7 seed, but they play at Denver and then Tennessee at the Giants, Jacksonville. A case can be made that Indy is going to be favored. Well, we know they're favored now. They'll be favored at home against Tennessee and Jacksonville. They'll be favored against the Giants. They'll probably be a small dog against Denver. If they run the table, they're in the playoffs. If they go 10-7 and they beat Denver, they're in. If they lose to Denver and they go 9-8, they're out because Denver probably gets to 9 wins with that win, and of course we'll have the head-to-head. So I think every game here on out is a playoff game. I was, impressed with their defense last week to some extent, and we talked about this before with the Detroit game. They just kicked field goals. You can't be kicking field goals. It's week in, week out. The coaches who are aggressive are the coaches who are getting repaid, and the teams that are going for touchdowns, especially if multiple opportunities throughout the game. If you have 2 or 3 opportunities, you're settling for field goals. Teams are missing field goals, so there's no gimme anymore. In the first couple of weeks, everyone's making 60-yarders like they're extra points, and now nobody can make a 28-yarder. Missing extra points, missing short kicks to tie games. So these kicks aren't gimmies anyway, but you can't kick field goals against Detroit, and that was a huge mistake. Against New England, maybe you can. I was very unimpressed with New England last week. I understand Drake Mays played better, maybe looks better than some of the other rookies, but they have no downfield passing. There's no threat. So Indy's weakness in the secondary, there's nobody who's going to take advantage of that. And New England doesn't have the defense really to keep up. There's guys who are going to be open. The question is, can Richardson hit them? We joked around before that there was a grounding penalty against Richardson last week where he chucked the ball and went like 20 yards over his receiver's head, and they threw the flag. But he was probably trying to hit his receiver and just missed. So he's got to do a better job. Like, he's so hit or miss. He's got such a great arm, but he's so grossly inaccurate. It's kind of pathetic to watch. But if he runs and Taylor can get going, I mean, this is a New England team that lost to Miami without Tua. This is a New England team that was down 31-0 last week before they scored a point. I have to imagine, and Indy, when they needed a game a couple of weeks ago, they beat Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh 27-24. I think this is a game where they can put up 24, 27 points. They're the better team. They need the game. And I like India. I think the line is short. Again, it's not grossly short. Like, I don't think on the road they should be favored by 6. But I would have made this line at least 3, 3.5. I see Super Contest line is 3. Right now, Circa has it at 2.5. So 2.5, it's for sure in. At 3, I'm probably going to still take it because, again, this is a playoff game, and I think they're the far superior team.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to take them. I think some people might be looking at this like casual bettors, like, oh, Indianapolis favored on the road. So
again, don't be afraid of the road this year. The road teams have been better, right? We always just look, home dog, throw it out the window. I know last week I said, you know what, I'm getting back to the roots. There's 8 home dogs. I'm going to be on a lot of these home dogs. It couldn't have gone worse. I mean, these home dogs, they're not covering this year.
No.
The numbers have to change. The adjustments have to be made. 2.5 is not enough. Indy's the better team. Indy needs this game. And unless Richardson throws a bunch of picks in the red zone and just gives away points, or throws picks in his own red zone that lead to points, if they protect the ball and play a clean game, I know it's a lot of ifs. He doesn't have to make the 60-yard touchdown pass. Just play a clean game. Don't throw a pick on the 8-yard line. Don't throw a pick in the end zone on first down. Avoid those mistakes. I think he will. Utilize the legs. Get Taylor going. I think this game is 27-17. I think they win this game by more than a touchdown.
Yeah, we definitely agree. I made it 21-17, but it's still a cover, which is what matters. All right, so we stay in the AFC South. We go to Texans at Jaguars. And this game, I feel like back in the day, I was kind of date myself here. So like back when I first started handicapping on my website, there were certain games that were off the board until like Sunday, just because we didn't know who the quarterback was. I remember the one game specifically, it was actually this exact matchup. It was Texans versus Jaguars, and no one knew who Houston's quarterback was going to be because David Carr was the starting quarterback back then. He was injured. You didn't know if he was going to play. And then the backup was also questionable. And so they ended up starting a third-string quarterback, Dave Ragone. And that was a game. I remember because I needed to handicap the game, and the game wasn't available until Sunday morning. And eventually they posted the line, and the Jaguars won 27-0 because Dave Ragone is horrible. And so, but now with all these sportsbooks out there, they have to post the line. So it's pretty funny how things have changed that way. So anyway, this line is 5. And I think either way, I'm going to be on Houston. So if Trevor Lawrence is out, obviously it's going to be Mac Jones against a defense that blitzes a lot. Mac Jones has been awful so far this year. He did cover the spread once technically, but he only scored 7 points. So let's just not give him credit for that one. And so if Lawrence plays, he may not be 100% because we saw last year Lawrence trying to gut it out, which you kind of want to respect. But at the same time, you have to kind of call these players out on it because they just hurt the team when they're not healthy. And Lawrence was so ineffective, and so I think we might be getting that sort of Lawrence here. And Houston's coming off a loss, a big humiliating loss to Tennessee. Losing as a big favorite at home. I think they bounce back. Feel like they sleepwalked through that game, coming off the Monday night win. I think they took that game for granted. And, coming off a loss here, I think that they are in a good spot. So we'll see where this line lands and if Lawrence plays or not. But I like I said, either way, I see myself being on Houston. So who do you like here?
If Lawrence plays, this line's going to be 3.5.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lay 5.5 when the line's 3.5.
Right.
If Lawrence plays. Now, obviously, the Jags have the worst defense in the league. They're number 32 in defense yards per play. I just lack trust in Houston laying points. They have not proven, other than the Dallas game, that they deserve to be favored. I mean, they continue to run the ball on first and second down. They find themselves in third and long. And when they played this game the first time around, they barely won. They squeaked out a win. They scored with 18 seconds to go to win 24-20. And that game, they gave up a touchdown on a muffed punt that was in the end zone, basically. Or maybe it wasn't in the end zone. Maybe it was at the 1-yard line. So they fell behind in that game. But Stroud has not been good the last few weeks. He's taken a lot of sacks, even against teams that are not great defensively. He has not looked good. He didn't look good against the Jets. He looked really poor last week. They were 3 for 13 last week on third down. A lot of their third downs are third and long, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Nico Collins can't bail him out on every single play. And Mixon, he's been good for the most part. But this is another team like Washington, like two teams that I really like to back, especially more as dogs, that have not been impressive. And if it's Mac Jones, this line's got to be more than a touchdown. Mac Jones can't score. Mac Jones is not an NFL quarterback. Obviously, this line will move, and you'll be on Houston. I'd be on Houston up to 9.5 if it's Mac Jones, because I don't trust that they would score at all. And I feel like in that scenario, Houston's going to put up their 24-27 and we'll be fine. But with Lawrence, who has not won games, he's fought back. If they're down by 10, he's going to drive the field. And if Houston's playing that prevent defense, the back door's open. So if he's in the game, I'm not laying 5.5 points. If he's out of the game, I certainly would. But I'm disappointed in Houston. Again, this is another team that should be better than what they've shown. Wins wise, they should be better. And just in the games, even the games they've won, they have not been sharp. So I don't trust them against better teams right now. And I don't, frankly, I mean, I certainly believe they'll win the game either way because Lawrence is a loser, but I can't trust them to win by margin. And certainly I can't trust them to close the back door when they're not converting third downs. And they just made Will Levis look like Joe Montana. He was unbelievable in that game, throwing the ball downfield. I know it's a bad game. I know it happens, but I'm sorry, but it's just one of those. My eyes are telling me that this team is not as good as what they should be. And I dropped them my power ratings. I think where do I have them now in my power ratings? They were like to start the season. I had them as a top 5 team. I have them now down at number 9. So they're not too far out, but I'm disappointed in them. Them and Washington are my 2 teams that I've been riding a lot, and I'm disappointed.
Will Anderson came back a comment here.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, he played last week. He didn't play all the snaps like he normally does. I think he played about. Let me check to make sure. He played 34 snaps last week, which was let's see, defense. It's about half the snaps he played. Usually he plays about like 75 plus %. So yeah, I guess we didn't get the full Will Anderson last week, but still, they still sacked Will Levis 9 times. So how much more of an impact could he have made? I guess. By the way, Doug Peterson coming off a bye, he's 2-5 against the spread here with Jacksonville and Philadelphia coming off bye. So just not a good football career.
Yeah, you would think it's a big coaching edge, but again, Bobby Slowick. I mean, it's just,
right.
They love setting up 3rd and long. It just makes me crazy watching 2nd and 8 run, 2nd and 10 run. Let's set up 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Don't worry, Nico Collins will bail us out. But Stroud hasn't been great, and it's been troubling to watch this team play. I felt like earlier this season this was really one of the top contenders in the AFC, and I don't feel that way. I think they're obviously a class below Buffalo, who beat them, Baltimore and Kansas City. They're not on that level. I don't think they can compete with that level, and we'll see it in a couple of weeks on Christmas when they play at Baltimore. I think it's at Baltimore. Houston, Baltimore. No, it's at Houston. Okay, even better. So Houston has a better chance now that they're playing at home. That's a game that will tell me if this team is going to compete in the playoffs. But right now, I don't trust them.
Yeah, it's hard to trust Slowick, but this is a game where they're going to be able to run the ball. Slowick runs at the highest clip on 1st and 2nd down. Jacksonville's horrible against the run. So Joe Mixon should have a good game here. It's going to be different than the last time we played Jacksonville. Remember, they only won by 4 when they were favored by 6 or so in the first matchup here. But that was a Cam Akers game because Mixon was out, and the Cam Akers was just not picking up any yardage. So with Mixon here, I feel like Houston's going to have a much better time. I think Mixon is going to have a huge game. I would play him in DFS and everything like that.
I'm just looking at Will Anderson from PFF. He had a grade of over 90.
Yeah. No, he played well. Yeah, he just didn't play the full allotment of snaps. Usually
he had 4 pressures. He had 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries. So maybe he didn't play the full comp. He had 30. He played 34 plays, 34 snaps in the game. So he's played about half.
Yeah.
13 were against runs and 21 against the pass. So he had a pretty good rate. I mean, of quarterback pressures, but maybe he just needs to play a little bit less right now. So who knows? But he's definitely playing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we move on to Arizona at Minnesota. This line is Vikings minus 3.5, which I think is a little odd. Not that like the public isn't going to bet this or something like that. Like, but I'm just saying that like Minnesota here, like being favored by more than field goal against a good team, I think is a little odd to me because they no longer have Christian Darrisaw, and maybe just people aren't picking up on that. But the Vikings are 4-1 to be fair without Darrisaw, but their 4 wins have come against teams under 500. The Colts, the Jaguars, the Titans, and the Bears. And they needed overtime to beat the Bears. They needed a 12-7 victory to beat the Jaguars, and the Colts game was also close. So they have won without Darrisaw, but they haven't been that impressive. And so their offense isn't as sharp as it once was. And then on the other hand, you have Arizona coming off a loss, where Arizona they had some chances to score. Like they had a couple opportunities that went awry, and if they hit those passes, then they may have won the game in Seattle, and we'll be looking at this game a lot differently had that happened. But yeah, I had concern with Arizona coming off a bye with wins, but now that they've had a loss, I think they could rebound here. So I think that Arizona is a good play here, and it's pretty fair to be skeptical about this 9-2 record. Like usually a 9-2 team is favored by way more than 3.5 points against an opponent who's not considered to be a great team. But yeah, it's only 3.5, and I think it's only 3.5 for a reason. So I like Arizona here. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. I made the line 3.
Okay.
And we talked before about with Chicago, teams that are coming off the overtime games. So Minnesota just played a full game, 5-quarter game. So that's something to keep in mind. It's Sam Darnold has not been great. They're not putting up points. Jefferson only had 1 catch before overtime. He ended up with a catch in overtime as well. So, I mean, that would scare me in this game where Jefferson did absolutely nothing, and now Arizona's secondary is coming to town. So, and I do give Minnesota a home field edge. I only have these teams a point apart. I think these teams are relatively close, and I give 2 points for Minnesota being at home. They're going to blitz. Flores is going to rush Kyler, but he's got the legs to escape pressure. So I look at that as a positive. If he's blitzed, that he can actually make plays with his legs, as opposed to a quarterback like a Kirk Cousins or dare I say last week, Caleb Williams, who actually had a great run. One of his runs last week was amazing, but he took a huge sack in overtime. And quarterbacks that hold the ball that are kind of statues are really not either rookies or sitting ducks behind that line. Kyler's not that. So he'll recognize pressure. He'll be able to escape pressure. And I think this is going to be a field goal game. I don't think of Arizona as highly as you do. I was on Seattle last week. I'll be on Arizona next week when they're home against Seattle. They'll split that series. The idea, that's what the NFC West does. One team will win one. They'll lose the next. I kind of worry a little bit about that sandwich spot with Minnesota in between 2 Seattle games. But the fact that they're coming off of a loss, I would think that Arizona is a live dog in this game. I don't know if they win the game, but if I'm getting 3.5, I have to be on Arizona here. I think one of the things to look at here from a matchup perspective is Minnesota is number 2 against the rush. We know that's what Arizona wants to do. Minnesota is also 5-1 at home. Arizona 2-3 on the road. But I'm not trusting Darnold laying points. I like the extra hook here. I like the fact that they're coming off a loss, Minnesota, off the overtime. Am I playing this in a contest? I might. I looked at this game as, again, if I'm getting more than a field goal, I probably would consider it. I certainly highlighted it as one of my maybes. So not a guarantee, but certainly a game that I would look towards. If this line were 3, I'd probably stay away. But at 3.5, I think we get a little bit of value.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, bring up, I don't like Kyler against complex defensive schemes. So, Kyler is really good against the blitz. The Vikings blitz the highest rate in the NFL. You touched on that. And it's funny. Some of his numbers actually improve when blitz. But all blitzes are not created equal. And so that could be a fair criticism of Kyler, who's been known to slack off in the film study in the past. So, yeah, I mean, that could be an edge. So I don't love the game, but I still think Arizona is the right side.
The back door is also open here, right?
Yep.
That's an offense that can score. Yep. That's an offense that's not going to quit. And we're getting 3.5 points. And again, we've seen a lot of value this year with the road team. Mm-hmm. So I think this line might be a little bit too high. Minnesota off the win. Minnesota, I mean, they certainly need the game if they think they're going to win the division. But this could be 2 playoff teams right here. So and Arizona covered a bunch of these games. They covered Miami. They covered the Chargers. We've talked about these games as games they probably should have lost, but they should have lost and covered. Either way, those games they were losing by 1 or 2 points. So I absolutely believe that they can lose this game by 1, 2, or of course 3 points and cover the game. And certainly if they're down by 10 or 11, they can backdoor this game. So they didn't last week. They were crap last week. They scored 6 points in the game. I expect them to play better than that. And I'm not laying points with Sam Darnold. So yeah, I like Arizona at 3.5.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not laying points with Sam Darnold against a good team. All right. So now we get to everyone's favorite team, the Jets. They were -1.5 on the advanced spread, and we had some people in here saying that they were going to bet Seattle. So congratulations if you got the +1.5, because Seattle's now -2. I don't know how you could take the Jets. Like, I know that there's line value here now because they were favored, but really they shouldn't have been favored. So I don't know if it's actually real line value, even though the line has moved 3.5 points. It's just a weird situation. Like, you sometimes have lame duck coaches. Like, you have a lame duck quarterback here because Aaron Rodgers is already talking about playing somewhere else. So
No, I heard that today. He said the news of the news of the Jets today is if he chooses to play in 2025, his number one choice is the Jets.
oh, okay. So okay, never mind. So that's
That's the news out of Jets camp today.
all right.
That's
Well,
where he would choose to play.
right. Throw everything out the window. Yeah, I don't. The Jets probably know they're not going to make the playoffs. Maybe they could talk themselves into maybe somehow getting into 9-8. But I like, this team has such high expectations, and they're all gone. Like, what is the motivation here? I don't know. I mean, yeah, they're playing for contracts. Some guys are going to play hard, sure, but the team as a whole, like, were they like spending the week looking at Seattle, like formulating a game plan? I don't see it. So yeah, I'm on Seattle. I assume you're also on Seattle.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, there's no value anymore in the line laying 2.5 points because the Jets certainly could win. They could play hard. They could do what they did to Houston and come back and win a game, or the Colts game where the Colts won, but by 1 point. So, if you lose that game by 1 or 2 points late in the game because you miss an extra point, or you miss a field goal, or you tie, or you could potentially tie a game and go for 2 and don't get it. So that 2.5 can absolutely come into play. So I'm not rushing to lay 2.5 points. And if the Jets do try, maybe they're better than what the power rating number is right now. But like you said, even if they do try, are they game planning? The coaching staff just has been abysmal. There's no game plan. There's poor scheme on both sides. There's nothing is being schemed up to make it easy. It's Rodgers snapping the ball and trying to make a play, trying to put the ball into a tight window for Devontae or Garrett Wilson. And without some of these really special receptions, okay, so Brees Hall a couple weeks ago was good, and they took a lead against the Colts and then blew it. So I can't be on the Jets if I don't know for sure that they're going to give me a good effort, and I just don't know that they're going to give a good effort. And even if they do, I still think Seattle, I mean, at best, the game is a toss-up. So I'm not on this game. I'm not putting this game in a contest pick. I don't see any value. If I were getting Seattle on the look-ahead line as like a +1.5, then I might consider it. But right now, this is a very low-ranked play for me. I'm not interested. I wouldn't even tease this game. I have no interest in teasing the Jets for sure. And I'm not going to tease Seattle as a favorite. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I wrote that this might be like sticker shock because, we spent the entire week looking at the Jets as a favorite, but now they're a dog. And so, like, is that like, that's why we're not taking them? But yeah, I know the line value is a little gone there, but it's not like it moved through a key number. So I may end up betting Seattle. I'm not sure, but I agree. It's not going to be one of my contest picks unless they're like some major interest.
I would bet Seattle live if they go down 7-0.
Okay.
If they're down 7-0, because I expect them to fight. We've seen this from Gino a few times. They'll fight back, and they have good receivers. And if they have to throw, they can get back into the game. So if you're getting value, if they're down 7-0 or 10-3, kind of like a lackluster first half, maybe it's 13-6 or something like that at halftime. And at halftime, you're getting Seattle like +3.5. That might be the way to go. And if the Jets are down 13-3 at half or 17-7, something like that, I might still look to play Seattle because if the Jets are down big at halftime, forget it. Like, are they really going to give you a second half effort?
Right.
So to me, I would look in-game Seattle either with spread value or Jets quitting value. But pregame, to me, it's a toss-up, and I don't see any real value. And the answer is no. I would not money line parlay Seattle. And I certainly wouldn't tease Seattle because I'm not teasing a team that's -2.5 or 2 to +4. That's just not something I ever look at.
Yeah. So with this teaser, Philly +9, Miami +9.5. Philly +9 is fine. I'd rather go 2.5 to 8.5, but 3 to 9 is okay. 3.5 to 9.5, there's just no value there. Like, you could just take.
I don't like any of those games on teasers because Miami, if Miami's down 10, and they pan the camera to Tua, who's buried in a ski mask with his hands in his pockets, and Tyreek Hill over on the sideline looking like he's freezing his ass off. That's not a team I want money on.
Yeah.
And we'll get to Philly soon, but no, I would not be on Philly as a teaser.
Yeah, of the two, definitely Philly's I like better because, like I said,
Yeah,
you need 3, 6, and 7 for to mathematically make
yeah,
sense.
better is a relative term, but
Right.
I don't like it. And as far as money line Colts, just lay the points with the Colts.
Yeah.
Why am I money line? If the line is okay, if the line is like minus 150, maybe take a money line instead of taking the 2.5. But you're paying for that. I don't think it's worth the price. So if you like Indy, just lay the 2.5. Find the two. There's 2.5s available. You don't have to play it at 3. You can play it at 2.5. And Seattle. I mean, if you like Seattle, okay, great. But I don't think it's worthy of a money line parlay. If that's what you're looking for here.
Yeah. So thank you, Can Make an Eagle. Thank you so much for the 199 super chat. Really appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, if you really want Philly, definitely try to take another second, a better second team on the teaser because 3.5 to 9 have there's not much of a difference there for you make the bet. And what Evan said is absolutely correct. Like Tua could just freeze to death. You know, you have that. There's a meme going around when the Colts lost to the Chiefs in the playoff game in a very cold weather game. It was Andrew Luck with his face plastered on Jon Snow, and he just looked so miserable. Yeah, that could be. We could have a new meme in this game. So I would not take.
Yeah, the dog to take this week on the teaser, if you like the side, is Pittsburgh. Because that very likely could be a one possession game. Although I think Cincinnati wins by a touchdown. I'm on Cincinnati, so I'm not on Pittsburgh with the teaser. But if you like, Walt, you said you kind of lean Pittsburgh plus 2.5. Maybe it's 3, 2.5. If that line's 2.5, that's where I would look Pittsburgh because they do tend to play these one-score games, especially in the division. That might be your better teaser play. And as far as pairing that with a favorite, again, I don't believe playing 5.5-point favorites makes sense on the teaser. But if you like the teaser and you like Pittsburgh, I would look to the Redskins at 5.5, 6. We'll get to the game next, the Bucks-Panthers game. Maybe that's another line close to 6. And then the Texans, again, that line is 5. So you're not getting real value playing a 7-point favorite down to 1. And then, of course, we'll get to Buffalo, depending on the injury report there. So there are other plays on the teaser that are far superior to Seattle, Philly, and Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Of all the dogs, I think Steelers are the best teaser leg. I don't think I'm going to take a teaser this week unless some lines change. Just don't really love any of the options. Jets don't tackle. Walker runs wild. The Jets are second in the NFL in missed tackles, first in missed tackles per game. The only team that has more missed tackles than the Jets. You want to take a guess out of the blue?
I hope you're not going to play the Niners, who had a lot of missed tackles last week.
No, I kind of hinted at it. The only team that has more missed tackles than the Jets is a team that hasn't had his bye yet, which is why the Jets have the most missed tackles per game. So it's one of the 6 teams that hasn't had a bye yet. Is the only team that has more missed tackles than the Jets. So you can look at the Week 14 bye teams. There's 6 of them. You have 1 in 6 shot of nailing this.
Is it New England?
It's not New England, no.
It's not New England. Okay. Of those teams, I would have said New England. Maybe Washington because they played some teams like Philly and Baltimore.
Not Washington, no.
All right. Well, I give up.
It's Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my next guess.
Okay. Yeah. They had some bad defensive performances early in the year.
Yeah. Green Bay. They didn't tackle against Green Bay in that game in week 2, I think.
Yeah. DeForest Buckner was out for a while. They were missing some players in the secondary. So, yeah. But the Jets only have 3 fewer missed tackles than the Colts do right now. So I imagine they're going to overtake the Colts after week 14 is over. Or maybe this week. We'll see. All right. Let's go to the late afternoon games. You touched on Tampa here. So kind of curious your thoughts on this one because I can't really figure this one out. So Tampa at the Panthers, this line is Tampa -6, which is really bizarre to me because this is what the line was for Tampa at the Giants. So same spread, but I think we know the Panthers are better than the Tommy DeVito-led Giants because the Panthers beat the Daniel Jones-led Giants on a neutral field. The Panthers have played better recently. They beat the Saints. They beat the Giants with Daniel Jones, and they hung around with the Chiefs. I talked about how DJ Wanham coming back, such a big difference for the Panthers, who were dead last in pressure rate. And now they have a legit pass rusher, which they didn't have before. So their defense is a little bit better. They got after Mahomes. Like they pressured Mahomes pretty well in the second half. And so they were able to get some possessions. And Bryce Young, like don't look now, but he's playing mediocre football. He just had his fourth positive EPA game of his career. So he's not playing well, but he's not a liability either right now. Now maybe this is all a fluke and he falls back down to earth, but he has Adam Thielen now, so that's a legit receiver to go along with Xavier Legette, and David Moore is he's coming around. He's done a lot of work with Dave Canales, so he has a lot of experience in that system. So this Panthers team isn't that bad, but I still would go back to how Todd Bowles does against horrible quarterbacks. I brought up this list last week. So if you want to include Justin Fields as a pure passer, so Justin Fields, Desmond Ridder twice, Will Levis, Bryce Young twice, Spencer Rattler, and Tommy DeVito. These are the horrible quarterbacks he's played since the beginning of last season when the defenses declined. Despite the decline in defense, they're 6-2 against the spread against those quarterbacks. But the question is, does Bryce Young fit into that pantheon now that he's playing a little bit better? Like maybe he does. I don't know. I just don't know what's to think of Bryce Young at the moment. So this is a pass for me. I'm leaning Carolina, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this game.
I'm on Carolina. I highlighted this as a potential pick. A lot to unpack in this game. This is a really interesting game to me. Tampa Bay off the blowout win, so it's not a good spot. I don't like teams coming off that kind of win. And Carolina's off of a really good fight, but they didn't win. So it's a game that they can kind of point to and say, you see, this is what happens when we give a good effort. We're in the games. We're playing well. Bryce Young played well. I mean, they happen not to look like the worst team of all time in the last 3 weeks. They're still at the bottom of the league. They're still bad. They were down 20-6. Kansas City went to sleep, but you got to give them credit for fighting back and playing hard. And if they're fighting back and playing hard, unlike the Giants last week, who didn't fight back and didn't play hard, there's no reason why they potentially can't backdoor this game. So that's something to really kind of take as a positive in the game. Tampa Bay, the schedule gets really easy here. Now, I took before their game last week, over 8.5 wins, got plus money. Right now, it's still 8.5. I think it's like minus 220, though, so it's a really expensive 8.5. Tampa Bay plays, let's see where this is, Carolina here. Then they play the Raiders at home. Chargers is their only tough game left on the road. Dallas on the road, Carolina at home, New Orleans. So they can kind of run the table here, or maybe finish like 5-1 and compete for that last division, that divisional spot against Atlanta, even though Atlanta has the 2 wins against them. Tampa Bay, I was going to say, it's hard to, now you're expected to win. It's hard to consistently win by margin. Teams like Detroit are the teams that are doing that. But if you look at Tampa, almost every single one of their wins has been by 2 touchdowns. I mean, they beat Philly by 2 touchdowns. The only win they had that was not by 2 touchdowns was the Detroit game. Otherwise, they're winning games by 18. They're putting up 50 points against teams that are garbage, like New Orleans, when New Orleans was playing Rattler. So give them credit. They've been winning games by real margin in some of these weeks. So, but if Carolina is going to try, it's a divisional game, backdoor is open. They kind of expect to win. They know they're going to win. They're kind of thinking now in their heads, easy schedule. We're going to win these games. We have this game. We have a winnable game next week. I think that backdoor is open. I think that divisional game, I fully expect the Bucs to win. So do I think Carolina's a live team to win the game? I don't know. I think it could be interesting, but I certainly think if the Bucs are down, Baker will find the way. Baker's a gamer. Baker really has played well. He's impressed me, continues to impress me. So I think if the Bucs find themselves behind, I certainly believe they'll come back and pull this out. And if they're ahead, Carolina's going to try. So for me, I like the Panthers with the points. I like getting 6. I made this line 5.5. Super contest line 6. I know the current market is 5.5 circa. So we'll see tomorrow where circa comes. Thursday where circa comes out. But I'm on Carolina in this game, and until they prove me wrong, they've been playing hard. We had them last week plus 11. So I think Carolina's the right side.
Yeah. So we had a comment here. Panthers have done poorly of late against Tampa. Well, last year they covered 21-18. They got the back door in that game. And then the second game, they lost 9-0 in Week 18, but they had 2 touchdowns called back by penalty. So that easily could have been a cover as well. So, yeah, I think Carolina's the right side. And one thing I didn't mention that I'm almost afraid to mention because it backfired so miserably last week is that you have Dave Canales against his former team from last year, and you might have some inside info, but last week you had Dan Quinn against his former team, and that was a loss. And then you had all the Charger coaches against their former team, and that was a loss. So I don't know if this works, but
Yeah, I'm not necessarily factoring that into the handicap. For me, it's really about one team is clearly trying. Well, both teams are trying, but the team that's bad is clearly giving an effort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important because when you're behind, if you're going to try, you can still cover. And if you come out and a team takes you lightly, I can absolutely see Carolina going up 7-0, Carolina having a small lead at halftime. And, I'll get burned one more time on Carolina this year because I was on them last week and I thought at 20-6, I'm like, all right, that was dumb. Stop taking Carolina. But they fought. I'm like, okay, that's kind of what I expected. I expect them to fight. And Tampa Bay, the only thing that gives me pause is their wins have been dominant. They've won by margin in 4 of their 5 wins, by real margin. Now we're talking 17 plus, not just 27-20. They're winning 52-26 or whatever some of these scores are. 33-16 against Philly. Philly may not have been the same team at the time. They beat Detroit. So these are games where real impressive wins that they're putting together. And last week they took care of business. So they played against a bad team that quit. They won 30-7. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to have that game like Kansas City. It's like, yeah, we know we're going to win anyway. Don't worry about it. Tampa Bay comes out, they step on your throat, and they push the score. So let's see. But I think this might be the right spot on the road, or Carolina should stay at home. That they'll give you a good effort, and we can come within that 5.5, 6 points.
Yeah. Andrew asking Bucky Irving, Chuba Hubbard, definitely Irving. He had so many more touches last week than he did before, and it's a post-by rookie bump here for him. So yeah, and as Sue says, the Panthers don't have Vitavea. So and then over, I like the over in this game. But I'm not a good totals better. So
what's the over? I made the game. So I 27-23, 26-23. What's the total? Carolina 46.5. Hey, it's close. Yeah. I don't think there's any value there.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I think if you like Tampa Bay, you like the over. Because I think if this game goes over, I think it's more Tampa putting up close to 30.
Yeah.
Whereas if Carolina is going to cover, it's one of those like 20-16, 23-20, something in that ballpark that might go under. So there might be a little bit of a correlation. Although last week that was the opposite. Last week, the game went over because Carolina was able to score and hang with Kansas City. But that only went over late with it was 27-19. There you go. There's your 46 points, and they scored and got the 2. So to me, I still don't want to bank on Carolina scoring. I think for them to cover, it needs to be a little bit more of a lower scoring game.
Yeah. Can you hear me right now, by the way?
Sure.
Yeah, my screen froze, but yeah, I can still talk apparently. All right, let's get to the next game. So it is the Rams at the Saints. The line is Rams -3 here, and so I like this game quite a bit. So you have the Rams losing in a blowout fashion on national TV. This is a situation I like to go to. When you have a good team, and maybe you can argue that the Rams are not a good team, which I guess you can make the argument, but I do think that they are a good team. I have them, or they're ranked around 10th in that EPA, with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, they've definitely shown that they're a better team. Their defense has gotten a lot better. Their offensive line is healthy. They just got smoked by the Eagles, who are just superior to them. But they're much better than the Saints, in my opinion. The Saints are coming off that dreaded bye plus win previously to a bye. You mentioned that a few times. I actually looked it up. Teams in that situation are
Walt, your screen froze. I don't know if guys in the comments can hear me. Now I see two Walters.
I am here.
You're back.
Yeah, hold on. Let me get rid
Your
of
first
this.
screen froze.
Yeah, it definitely froze. So let's see here. Let me.
You froze mid sentence with the early in your Saints handicap.
Yeah, so I was bringing up the stat or the stat that you were talking about, like the teams.
Coming off the bye and the win.
Yeah, the teams coming up buying a win. Those teams are 1-5 against the spread this year. So obviously small sample size, but I do think like you're onto something there where these teams have they win a game and then they're off for 2 weeks and they get to hear how good they are for 2 weeks and like is the preparation gonna be there? Like the Saints, they're not going to make the playoffs. Like this year is over for them. Like what does this game matter? Whereas like the Rams, they need to win this game much more than the Saints. I know that's not the end all be all, but still, I think this is much more important to the Rams, and I think they're going to play like it. As long as this is 3 or under, I have great interest in the Rams. So
what did you make the line? I'm curious.
What did I make the line? I think it's about the same. I think it was 2 or something. Rams -2. So yeah, it did fall short of what this is, but I maybe I was just too high on the Saints. I don't know. I just think situationally, I think that the Rams make a lot of sense to take here.
So I had a hard time kind of coming to that conclusion because in my head I wanted to be on the Rams. I was on the Rams against New England. I was on the Rams and won, although I didn't think they played well. I was on the Rams against Miami and they didn't play well at all and blew the game, or didn't blow the game, but they lost the game. They got beaten pretty badly in that game. I don't think they were ever really in that game. But my power ratings make this game 1. So that's why I ask you where you make the line. I have the Rams as the better team. I have the Rams in the situational spot that's certainly favorable. I don't think people are telling New Orleans how good they are. They fire a coach. They won 2 games. They're 4-7. So the season's not really over. They're in a bad division that theoretically is not lost for them. They're only 2 games out. And obviously there's games that are, the season's kind of, quickly coming to a close. Here we are at Thanksgiving and but they're only 2 games out. They're not 3-8 chasing a team that's 8-3. So they're chasing teams that are, that certainly could lose some games, and they just beat. They're coming off a game where they beat or that was the week before. They beat the Falcons, who are number 1 in their division right now. So when I look at the Rams, one of the things that I'm most unimpressed with is since they've gotten these linemen back, Avila comes to mind, they can't run the ball anymore. And more importantly, they're terrible on third down. Let's go back 3 weeks. Well, we'll start with last week. Last week, third down, Rams 0 for 8 versus Philly. Week before, New England 2 for 8. Week before that, Miami, they were 3 for 12, but they were 2 for 2 on the final drive of garbage time. So they were really 1 for 10. Take away those 2, Rams are 3 for their last 26 third down attempts. Why? Because Stafford's under pressure right through the middle. They are not running the right plays against it. When they're running boot, they're great. They're getting Stafford on the move, right or left, and Kupp and Nakua are open on the sidelines. When he takes the snap and just drops back 3 5-step drops, even 7-step drops, but most of his stuff is short, he's under pressure right away. And that's been a major, major problem. Now, I get it. The Saints don't necessarily have the pass rush to get to him. I also get they don't necessarily have Olave. But they've been good throwing the ball downfield. Like I said, I make the line 1. I really want to be on the Rams. But when I'm thinking about this game and I'm handicapping the game, since firing Dennis Allen, they've been better. I really think this line should have been more like Rams -1, not 3. And at 3, I can only look. I just think it's too expensive of a price to pay for a team that it just has not really looked that good, really against anybody. New England, they were not impressed. I know they won, and they ended up winning the game by 6. I get it. But if you watch that game, they were not impressive in the game. Like I had a lot on that game, and I was really annoyed watching the first half. So I look at this team, and The Saints kind of need the game just as much. If this line were 2.5, I'd probably convince myself, give me the better coach with a better spot that needs the game. But at 3, with Saints having somewhat of a little bit of a home field edge there, I'm probably on New Orleans. If you told me the line were 3.5, I'm for sure on New Orleans. At 3, I just don't want to be on the Rams. So I think this line should be closer to a pick 'em. And then I'd want to be on the Rams, but my handicap doesn't allow me to be there. So I'm not on the game, I'm not playing the game contest wise. I'm not teasing the game. I'm not betting the game. But I think the line is a little bit too expensive. But one other thing I do like in this game, Taysom Hill had a huge game rushing, and I can listen. Saquon's a different animal, and with Saquon plus Hurts with that offensive line, totally different running team. Don't think I'm comparing New Orleans rushing attack to Philly, but Taysom Hill brings another dimension to the game, and if he can get out in space, I worry about what I just saw from the Rams. Maybe they'll have some pride, given what they just gave up to Saquon. I mean, I had a really fun bet late in that game Monday night. Sunday night before the fourth quarter. Him and Kyron Williams had 235 rushing, and FanDuel was offering this ridiculous 15-1 that they'll combine for 300. And we've seen Saquon break. I mean, he already broke a 70-yard run earlier in the second half, first run of the half. And I thought maybe Kyron could get maybe 20, 30 yards, maybe Saquon. So I played it. You know what? 15-1, why not? And Saquon broke a run like 5 minutes later, and it was like I was like laughing about that. And that was a great hit. But that's a team like, they're just getting beaten up in the run game, the Rams, and their offensive line has been a joke, especially the middle of the line. And the third downs have been a real problem. So yes, spot, yes, coaching edge, but line's too expensive. Three is a little bit too much for me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have an issue with the 3. I think they can take the Saints. I don't like the Saints at all. With that interim head coach, against Sean McVay coming for a loss. I just like the spot a lot for
the spot, 100%. The spot and the coaching edge is way in your favor.
Yeah, and I think the Rams receivers against the Saints defensive backs, who that secondary group is just decimated by either injuries or departures. Just don't know how they're going. They've had issues with slot receivers all year, and now they can't cover outside receivers because there's no Lattimore. So just think this is a really good spot for
I actually when I made my look ahead lines
and
I saw the line. I think the look ahead was 3. I highlighted the Rams. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be on the Rams for sure. Like I like the Rams in this spot because of the New Orleans spot play, and I like Philly, so if they lose, I'm going to be on the Rams. But then I'm looking at them like these third downs really are scaring me. Like that offensive line. And then the line itself, I'm like, you know what? This is a line where I used to not believe to get off of, and now I'm going to get off of it. Like this was one of those mistakes that I used to make all the time. Like, yeah, I'm taking the Rams here for sure. And then this would be the game that I say I can't get off this game. I know I'm going to lose this game. Now I'm off the game.
Okay.
Just bet Puka overs. Agreed, 100%. That guy's great. And Cooper Kupp just looks like a shell.
Yeah, I like I said, I like Kupp a lot in this game because. The Saints haven't covered any slot receivers. Like Elijah Moore had a monster game against them. Like they can't cover anyone in the slot. All right. So Eagles, Ravens, game of the week here. Ravens favored by 3 in Baltimore. And we talked about the teaser a little bit earlier. I like the Eagles here. Ravens are coming off the win in LA. But they won 30-23. It was really 30-16, but it was 10-0 Chargers, and then it was 17-16 Ravens entering the fourth quarter. So it's not like this was a blowout, a 2-touchdown blowout or something like that, where the Ravens dominated. It was a pretty close game until the fourth quarter, and the big thing in that game was the Chargers couldn't stop the run. And I feel like it took the Ravens a little longer than usual to figure that out. Like they started the game by throwing more than running, and I was kind of confused by that because Denzel Perryman was out. The Eagles have the number 1 run defense in the NFL, and I think that's the key to stopping the Ravens offense. It's impossible to fully contain Derrick Henry, but if you can slow him down a little bit, you're going to force Lamar Jackson to throw more and do more stuff. And the Eagles have an improved secondary. They can also keep the mobile quarterbacks in the pocket. Jane Daniels didn't run as much. Granted, he's banged up, but still, they've shown an ability to stop mobile quarterbacks, and they practice against one. So I think they know a thing or two about that. So I like the Eagles a little bit here. I'm not in love with this game. Like I said, I think you could tease it up to 9 if you want, but really, this is stay away for me for the most part. What do you think about this one?
So I continue to be on Baltimore. Now, I don't like the line here because I make the line too. And
Mm-hmm.
3 makes me feel a little like push is probably a likely outcome. I can't wait for the game. You said the Eagles have the number 1 rush defense. My metrics, I go by yards per play. Baltimore, I have number 1 in the league at 3.5 given up. Philly at number 11 at 4.3. So this is going to be a very, very interesting game as far as rushing and run defense. For me, it's Lamar against the NFC. I don't know what the record is, but what are we talking about? 21 and 1,
Mm-hmm.
22 and 1, something like that. Last year, the Ravens beat up on the top 2 teams, Detroit. They blew out Detroit. They beat the Niners pretty badly on, I think it was Thanksgiving night or Christmas night. I think it was Thanksgiving night. No, maybe it was later. Maybe it was Christmas night. Anyway, they beat the Niners bad. So this is the team that kind of beats up on the good teams. For some reason, they can't beat Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati kind of has their number. Those games are always close. But when they play Buffalo, they kill Buffalo. When they play Tampa, they won by margin. When they play teams that are good teams, they make these teams look really, really poor. I think both of these teams right now, I have these teams tied number 2 and 3 in the league, about a point and a half, 2 points maybe behind Detroit. So I'm very excited about this game, but I lean towards Baltimore at home. Again, with the NFC record that Lamar has proven that he's been unbelievable in these games. But the line now is kind of moving a little bit more towards I don't want to play it. 2.5, I liked it. I made the line 2. At 3, I get why it's moving towards 3. So the question is, again, like last week with Sunday Night Football, I laid off Philly -3 because I missed out on the -2.5. Do I lay off that now? I'm still very high on Baltimore. I still think their offense is unbelievable when they want to be. I love the fact that they went for 4th and 1 at their own 16-yard line. I think those are game-changing plays. They did it twice, and both times led to touchdowns. We know their secondary has problems, but can Hurts really take advantage of downfield passing? I mean, he's playing well, but it's been Barkley that's been really playing well. A.J. Brown's been very good, but I don't know that it's like Anthony Richardson chucking the ball downfield or Derek Carr chucking the ball downfield or Burrow chucking the ball downfield. I think a lot of Hurts plays are more that 10-yard slant variety that A.J. Brown ends up taking for more yardage, more yak yards. To me, it comes down to the run game. And I lean towards Baltimore in the game, but no real strong conviction at -3. I can't wait for the game. This is typical. This is playoff football right now. So I like this game. I'm excited to watch this game. Don't think I'm going to have this in the contest.
Yeah, Sue says a coin flip game. That's how I feel about it too. So yeah, no conviction, strong conviction from either of us. We go to the Sunday night game, and I think it's going to be hard to have some conviction here at the moment because we don't know who's playing for San Francisco. We know if Brock Purdy's playing. We don't know if Nick Bosa is going to play. We don't know if Trent Williams is going to play. So it's very difficult to handicap this game right now. And this line is just set at 7. And you can't even go off what Kyle Shanahan says because Kyle Shanahan told us before the season that Christian McCaffrey had a calf injury. Turned out he had an Achilles injury that caused him to miss half the season. So, if you drafted him in fantasy or whatever, you have to feel really upset about that. The latest we have from Shanahan about Brock Purdy is that he threw in a light workout and he looked good. Now, that could mean his arm fell off, like for all you just don't know anything. So for me, if all these guys are out, it's easy Buffalo. This line's not gonna be 7 at that point. It's gonna be going up to 9.5 or so. But if all these guys are back, this line will fall, and then you're not going to get good line value. So if you have any insight into who's going to play, you might be able to get a good number here. But otherwise, it's tough to know. So I don't really know what to say about this game. I'm leaning Buffalo right now, but that could change. What do you think?
I'm leaning Buffalo also. I mean, again, it's impossible to know who's going to play. I want to believe that Purdy will play, but if Trent Williams doesn't play, that's a big problem. Certainly, if Bosa doesn't play, that's a problem. The Niners struggle with running. All things being equal, let's say that teams are healthy. You got snow in the forecast. That certainly is going to favor Buffalo. The Niners struggle with running quarterbacks. They've always historically struggled with Kyler Murray. Josh Allen is a significantly better version of Kyler Murray. bigger, faster, stronger. I mean, that guy is a machine. The only real issue that I would have with Buffalo right now is they're coming off of their Super Bowl and they're partying and they're not preparing for the Niners. This is not a big game for them. Yes, it's a night game. Yes, of course they want to win. Yes, of course they're chasing Kansas City for that 1 seed, but they locked up the division pretty much, and they just beat Kansas City, and that's not a spot that I want to be on. And Fred Warner, who's probably my favorite defensive player in the league, was really pissed off last week after the games. Like, we got embarrassed. And when a good team or a potentially good team gets embarrassed, they generally will prepare better to bounce back. But I just can't trust the team. We've talked about the Niners enough as far as this year when they have leads. I can't trust them. And if they're behind, if Buffalo's ahead, they're the bullies. We've talked about this before as well. They're the team that will step on your throat. So the Niners, somebody just mentioned, don't have the right pass rush. They don't. Without Bosa, they absolutely have no pass rush at all. They missed a ton of tackles last week. They kind of played like they quit. The defensive line in general, missing Hargrave from earlier in the season. They're not the same front seven as they've been in recent years. So it's not really a team right now to get excited about. I mean, they're at 5-6. The season kind of feels like a lost season at this point, although they're only one game out. So theoretically, if Seattle or Arizona slip up and the Rams slip up, they're still a game out, and they play the Rams in a couple of weeks. I think this is kind of like one of those, well, we don't really expect to win this game. Maybe Arizona loses to Minnesota. Obviously, they're dogs. Maybe the Jets show up and beat Seattle. Cares about the Rams right now. The Niners and Rams have the same record. And of course, they play each other in a few weeks. So maybe this is kind of a game just kind of throw out. But if none of these guys play, this line can't be high enough. The Niners lost 38-10 last week. And if Purdy, Bosa, and Williams don't play again, it's going to be 38-10 again. Whatever that line is, it can't be high enough. You have a free square in the contests. You have a free live betting opportunity. If those guys are out, this game is going to be another massacre. And you can take advantage. I mean, I hate to say it. I'm a Niner fan. I don't like betting against my team. But when I'm watching my team struggle like this, you have to be on Green Bay live. You have to be on Buffalo live. So it's an easy Buffalo play if guys are out. And if they're in and the line drops to 4.5, honestly, I'm still leaning towards Buffalo if that line dropped. So I think there's value on Buffalo either way. I wouldn't want it at 7 if everybody played. But if the line dropped to 4.5, I would. So I think Buffalo's the right side here, despite the awful, awful spot.
Over rushing yards for James Cook. Yeah, I mean,
no, I don't. Yeah. I don't like, because I think the Niner defense will show some pride.
Okay,
I think guys like Fred Warner, who's the best defensive player, arguably, he's definitely the best middle linebacker in the league. Maybe there's T.J. Watt, Parsons, Garrett, guys like that ahead of him. That guy is awesome. And if he comes out and says they got embarrassed, that defense will compete. They might not be very good. They might not have all their players, but the NFL is about effort. And those guys are going to give you a better effort. That much I would be very surprised if they allowed, like Jacobs last week, just all those missed tackles early in the game. I don't trust the Niner offense without Trent Williams, but I trust that the defense will give you a better effort against Cook. Allen, no, I would take Allen over rushing yards. Mm-hmm. But if Allen has a big lead, he doesn't need the rushing yards. So I would not look to play Allen pregame. That would be more of a situation to play in-game or in halftime. By the way, a lot of great same-game parlays you can play at halftime, knowing the situation of a game, knowing which team may be ahead and may be passing more or running more. There's a lot of, like I've done the past couple of weeks, FanDuel halftime week, these game specials, same-game parlays. Depending on the situation, you could really take advantage.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll have to see all the injury news. We may not even have it until late. So definitely look out for that. I'll have an adjustment on the site, of course. But yeah, let's get to the final game here. We have Browns at the Broncos. This line is Broncos minus 5.5. So this is another situation where you get to fade a team, a bad team that's coming off a win. The Browns won, against Pittsburgh in that snow globe game, and what happened the last time the Browns had their Super Bowl win over the Ravens. They got destroyed by the Chargers. Jameis Winston threw 3 interceptions, and he could have easily thrown 5 or 6 in that game. Now he gets the Denver team that is one of the best defenses in the NFL. kind of like the Chargers there. And Denver even better, an even better version of that. And you have Jameis Winston coming off a win again, playing at Denver feels like a nightmare matchup for the Browns. And really, like Cedric Tillman could be out, so you're going to have Patrick Surtain on Jerry Jeudy if that's the case, and then kind of have to wonder who is Winston going to even throw to outside of David Njoku, who I think could have a good game, but still, I really don't see any positives here for the Browns. They're not going to be able to run the ball with Chubb. And the Broncos just have been a machine against these bad teams recently. They covered last week against the Raiders. They destroyed Atlanta. I feel like this can be another big win for Denver. And the line feels like it's not high enough. Only 5.5 is definitely doable. So I like Denver quite a bit here. What do you think?
I am on the other side of this game.
Really?
Yeah, and this is maybe my AFC West where I have been behind you. So you've been right on the Chargers. I'm coming around. I'm not a buyer of Denver. I have Denver as a below average team. I get it. The metrics point to them being better than what maybe I think. You may have pointed out their EPA, but I'm not impressed with their wins. Last week, they, they had 5 yards per play against the Raiders last week. That's not good. Their offense is not that good. Baltimore killed them, and I'm very high on Baltimore, so I don't want to put that. Hey, you lost by 31 points to Baltimore, therefore you're bad. No, I think Baltimore does that to a lot of good teams also. Um, Not impressed with how they played against the Raiders. That game may have been a little bit closer than the final score. I mean, obviously, it would have needed a backdoor, so you never want to bank on a backdoor and say, oh, especially in a situation where they're up by 2 scores. Um, the Kansas City game they played well, but Kansas City plays with their food. So I can't really put that. I can't say, oh, they lost by 2 to Kansas City. They should have won. It was a blocked field goal at the end. You know what? Carolina just lost to Kansas City by 3. So at the end, and it could have been 2 if they didn't make that 2-point conversion. So I don't look at that game and say like, oh, you know what? You're a great team because you played close to Kansas City. Um, they had obviously 10 points against Baltimore's defense, which is not impressive at all. You want to lose by 30 to Baltimore or 28 to Baltimore, great. But they put up 10 points, and a lot of even in garbage time they couldn't move the ball. Now Cleveland's in a bad spot. I agree with you. Jameis Winston, hilarious to watch after the game, before the game, and after the game. But the extra rest, Denver hasn't had a bye yet, so they're one of the few teams that still haven't had a bye this late in the season. I think that might catch up to you at some point. We know Jameis is going to chuck the ball downfield. We know he's going to make some mistakes. But as far as power ratings are concerned, I have Denver right now ranked 19th. I still have them a half point below an average team. I have them tied with Miami and slightly behind the Bucks, Cardinals, and Seahawks. So for context, that's where I have Denver. And obviously I have the Browns, less. I have the Browns just ahead of the Jets, Bears, and Jaguars. So I have them at -2.5. So I have these teams 2 points apart. I give Denver a good 1.5, 2 points for home field. So I think this line is actually closer to 3.5, 4 than 5.5, maybe up to closer to a touchdown. I don't believe that I have a team that's definitively going to win. So I think I have somewhat of a live dog in this game, even though they're in the bad spot. And I'm going to take Cleveland. I really think that this is a game where Cleveland could win. Certainly the game could be close. I don't trust Denver's offense laying points. So will Winston be allowed to challenge Surtain? He's going to be allowed to do whatever he wants. He'll probably throw a pick to Surtain and maybe a pick 6 to Surtain.
Yep.
And that's going to be the difference in the game. If he throws a pick 6, or one of those variety, they're in the red zone and he can't move the ball, or they had a bunch of busted coverages in that Chargers game. But I thought they were pretty good in that Chargers game, besides for 2 or 3 busted coverages that led to third and long touchdowns. And I mentioned this after the Chargers game, they had 6 straight trips to the red zone. The first 5, they didn't produce points. So I expect them to be able to move the ball into scoring position and potentially make this a very close, tight game. So I'm excited for this game. I'm always excited to watch Jameis, especially on national TV at night. But I do think they're a live team, and I'm going to be on Cleveland.
Okay. Well, we had a lot of agreements to start the show. We have a disagreement here at the end, which is always great because it's always good to have different perspectives and whatnot. So you guys can I guess choose which argument you like the best. That's about it for this week. Any final thoughts or anything else we have?
No, I always look to the futures. Tampa Bay was the team I played last week. I think they're getting a little expensive right now. I was trying to find value for that, like yes or no to make the playoffs, because we look at Denver, Cincinnati, and Indy, and those three teams are basically competing for one spot, right? I'm going to give Pittsburgh a spot. I don't think Pittsburgh's winning the division. I still think Baltimore is going to win the division. I give Pittsburgh a spot, and I give the Chargers a spot. 5, 6, whatever, it doesn't really make a difference. So when you look at the schedules, it's like, where can we find value going through who might get that final spot, getting the plus money? And Denver and Indy play each other in 2 weeks, coming out of the Denver bye. I think maybe we wait one more week here because, like I said, I think Cleveland certainly could win. Maybe Denver wins the game. I think the game is going to be a very close game. Indy, I do think will win, and Cincinnati, I think will win. So, for me, I think that there might be some value on Cincinnati and on Indy right now over Denver. But I'm going to let this week play out and then look towards that. I think where we can really find value in that 7th playoff spot. So if you like Denver this week and you like Pittsburgh this week, or maybe you don't love Indy this week, or if you like Denver this week and therefore you might probably like Denver coming out of their bye at home against Indy, maybe now is the time for you to play Denver. I think it's like minus 150 to make the playoffs. So if you like Denver this week, I would assume you would like Denver off their bye week against the Colts. Maybe you don't like Cincinnati as much. You're getting minus 150 now. That's a bargain price. Because if they win these games and Cincinnati loses and they're favored against the Colts, that minus 150 is going to become minus 300 or worse, or I should say, or better for them. So that could be something to look at right now. If you like Denver, to play them, yes, playoffs on Denver. And remember, if Kansas City has that 1 seed locked up, Denver gets a free square, call it your free square bingo card, in Week 18 against Carson Wentz. Although Carson Wentz might be, a decent backup option, certainly not Tommy DeVito or some of the other Brandon Allens of the world. But Denver will be favored in that game if Kansas City is playing all their backups. So you might have value now if you like Denver to look towards the yes playoffs. I'm waiting for this week, and I would like to try to find some value potentially on Cincinnati or the Colts instead of Denver, because I'm still not a believer in Denver. That's all I got for you as far as futures.
I'm not the believer in Denver either. I like how they sit on these bad teams and bad quarterbacks. They just look at how they've done against all the bad quarterbacks this year.
And Jameis qualifies. I don't think Jameis is in that. He's not. He's certainly not good.
Yeah.
I just look at their wins, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about earlier in the season, they caught Tampa in a bad spot.
Right.
They beat the Jets in a rain game where nobody expected them to win. They were a 100-yard pick six basically away from going down 14 to the Raiders. They were down 23-0 to the Chargers before they fought back when the Chargers went to sleep. They caught New Orleans with Rattler. They beat up on Carolina, did what they're supposed to do. Then they got their asses kicked against Baltimore. The Chiefs game, they should have won, but the Chiefs just play those games. And then, they killed Atlanta. I mean, are we impressed? Sure. They killed Atlanta. They beat them by 30. They were very, very solid in that game. And they were not overly impressive, especially offensively, against the Raiders this week. So I'm still waiting for a couple of games. I don't think there's enough games for me right now with Denver's schedule for me to really be impressed with Denver. Cleveland, Indy, if they're the 7th seed and they play Buffalo on the road in round 1, I mean, I'm all over Buffalo in that game. And we're going to talk about this hopefully in a couple of weeks. When I handicap playoff games, the first thing I look at, the absolute first thing I look at is your resume. I want to know how you did against teams that are playoff caliber teams or above 500 teams. And when I go through that Denver schedule in a couple of weeks as a 7th seed, I'm going to say, I'm not impressed with you, Denver. You remind me of Pittsburgh a couple of years ago, who went in to a game as a 10-point underdog against Buffalo. And TJ Watt, I think, may have had a strip sack or a fumble recovery for an early touchdown, and then they didn't score the rest of the game. Those 7 seeds that don't belong, the Miamis of the world, when they actually had Skylar Thompson in the game against Buffalo, that's going to be a rout. If Denver goes to Buffalo, that's going to be 35-10. So I'm going to look. I mean, as an NFL fan, I don't want to see that. I want to see Buffalo Cincinnati. That's what I want to see as a 2-7 matchup. I don't want to see Buffalo Denver. As well as Denver's played against poor competition, I have no desire to watch them in a playoff game. So I'm rooting against them as an NFL fan. And I just don't believe in them yet. I don't like their offense. I know their defenses play well. Nick Bonito has been very good. Sean Payton's been very good with Knicks, but I'm not a believer in this team. So I'd like to see them fall so that I don't have to watch them in a playoff game get routed by the Bills or whoever they or Baltimore, whoever they play in that first round. That I think they're going to get crushed. I mean, I don't want to watch Baltimore Denver again. I already saw Baltimore Denver. I already know the outcome of that game. So I'm not interested in that. I'm rooting for Jameis Winston. I'm rooting for him to make some kind of speech pregame, another speech postgame. Maybe we get some snow. Is there any snow in the forecast in this game by any chance? What's the weather forecast in Denver? It's probably too far ahead. Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, same clear skies, 37 degrees, but who knows? That could always change.
Yeah, that sucks. Let's pray for some snow because
Yeah.
that was so much fun watching Jameis Winston. I don't know what's better, watching Jameis talk before or after that game or watching the snow on Mike Tomlin's beard. That was great.
that was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, that was poetry.
It was fun until Nick Chubb got the rushing yards where we had the under, and they took him out of the game because they were just behind and they were going to run the ball. And of course, like they convert fourth down and like third and long, and then they finally get in a position where they have to run the ball, and it's like, oh god, and here we go. And so yeah, he gets a 7-yarder right away, and the under is busted. That was such a frustrating beat.
Yeah, John Sanders commented that Steelers didn't play TJ. It may have been TJ Watt against Kansas City 2 years ago in that first round playoff game.
Yeah,
that could be the game that I'm thinking of. I just want to go back to my playoffs to 2 years ago. I think that was probably the game
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, I remember. I know.
Yeah, it was Chiefs Steelers, and the line was 12.5, and the final score was 42-21.
Yeah, I had the Chiefs in that game,
and that's what you're going to get if you get Denver in that game. Like they just don't belong. If you're an NFL fan, you don't want to see that. Oh, Sunday Night Football, here we go. It's Denver against Buffalo or Denver at Baltimore. Please,
no.
Somebody knock Denver out. Let's get Kansas City. Let's get Cincinnati in that game. That would be great. How much fun would that be? Round 3, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Those are probably the 2 best games of the season, or 2 of the best games of the season.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that game again, and frankly, I would love to see Buffalo, Cincinnati as well. So, yeah. So let's go, Jameis. Although if you're betting on Denver,
yeah, I'm rooting for the pick sixes.
Yeah.
I just like how Denver sits on these bad offenses. Whenever they play a good offense, they have no chance. But they are. I think they are a bully defensively.
Fair.
Yeah. The coaches get to decline a penalty and then change their minds. It happened twice.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy. Yeah, it's insane. They need to do something about that. But all right, guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, they need to change that rule. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys commenting and everything. And thank you so much to John Sanders for the 511 super chat and Can't Make an Equal for the 199 super chat. And let me echo happy Thanksgiving, everyone. So yeah, if you don't tune in tomorrow, Kenny will be on to do the fantasy football rundown. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll be back tomorrow, and then Thursday we're going to have a show Thanksgiving night. I'm not sure if Andy will be on, but if Andy's not on, I have someone ready to step in. So should be a fun episode, and then Saturday as well with Tom. So please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. Evan, love doing the show with you as always.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody else, and enjoy dinner over Mike McCarthy against Brian Daboll. That is exciting.
I can't wait. It's gonna be
any football is good football. It's Thanksgiving Day. It's one of the best days of the year.
Yeah, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of hilarity in the game. Nothing's ever gonna beat the butt fumble on Thanksgiving, but this could be a good runner-up. But yeah, looking forward to all the games, even Giants Cowboys. So all right, guys, have a great holiday, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow. And have a good night.